Okay, who's been turning this week? I know it's been a great week to be out in the shop, if you can get through the snow in some
Eh,
parts of the world. In other parts of the world, you can just watch the videos and wonder. But it's been a great time to be out. Got to get that holiday stuff caught up if you're not caught up, and make plans. Hey, talk about making plans. The grade eights really get working. I mean, I'm getting reports from the committees and looking at stuff they're doing. And boy, I tell you what, folks, I'm only talking about 50 of y'all right now, but Level Up is shaping up for September 2026. And it's going to be second great trip of the year for me. My number two granddaughter's getting married, but they tell me I got to go to Guatemala to see it. And yeah, and destination weddings. Um, I still got time to talk about that, but then we're going to go to, yeah, still going to go either get married or go to Guatemala, one of the two. Um, but Level Up is going to be one heck of a thing. I was trying to explain it to somebody just yesterday while I was at PT, and a lady chimed in. I didn't think she was even in the conversation, but she was in the pool there right with us. And she said, wait, you have all these people putting this together. Who's going to manage the show? And I said, well, we have a couple of guys that's going to be the whip masters and, make sure everything flows along right. And she said, no, I mean, did you hire, and she named off 4 or 5 companies that manage shows. And I said, oh, no, we don't need that. And she said, oh, you can't do a show unless you have those people. You can't get into a place and you can't do this and you can't do that. Well, you're talking wood turners. Number one, you don't tell us what we can't do. Um, but we got to talking about it, and she knows very little, but she wants to join up just to see what it's all about. Uh, but it's shaping up really good, folks. It's going to be an interesting time, and we'll keep giving you updates on it. And we're less than 30 days away from giving you a full bank load of what we can do here to level up. And all of this is dependent upon one group of people, you, the membership. Might sound like a hypey thing that, a promotion or whatever, or PSA as they call it, a show business. No, it's the God's truth. Everything that we do here, every time we meet, is based on you. So we need input. We want input. We want you to give us a feedback. We'll know the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're not afraid of any of it. In fact, we'll grow from it. Somebody emailed me today and asked me if there's a chance that somehow we could do a demonstration on our meeting right here, our regular meetings, on how to apply CA finish on a simple bowl. He said he's been turning forever, and we, talking about all of us, keep talking about how'd you finish that? And he said, there's a lady, Band-Aids, whatever, that talks about 3408. Brenda, he's talking about you. Um, and and I said, what about, I came back and said, what do you need to know about this? He said, I don't understand it. And he's a new turner. He probably doesn't understand it. First time I saw it done by that fellow that I saw it in Texas, Alan Trout, I believe it was, showed it at a SWAT meeting maybe 15 years ago. There was so many people there saying that won't work, that won't work until he got done, and they went, "Holy, that worked!" And the people, it was gorgeous. Um, but if we could line somebody up, we're always looking for demos. We want turn a simple bowl, and then come on and step up to the lathe and show us the presentation, the piece, and then apply a CA finish to it. But go a little bit more than that. Apply your favorite finish to it on half of it, and then CA on the other half. Or do the inside, do the outside, whatever. Let's see your exhibition of finishes. And we want you to do your finish. Uh, don't go down to the hardware store and buy something off the shelf and say, "Oh, I'm going to do, I want to do this with Varimaster number 9." And that could be some garbage they sell to people that own lawn furniture. So, you don't want that. I don't think you do. So, we get somebody to do a demonstration. And folks, you can do these demos with the cell phone right there. It's not that difficult. All the videos I produced for 3 years came off my iPad only because I could see. It was easier to see the image on the iPad as I was producing it. So I could look across the room without my glasses on and see what the image looked like, so I could move to get in the frame of the image or adjust the camera. But I could have done the same thing with my iPhone. I use my wireless mic, put it right in my iPhone, generated directly to the computer. Could have done that through the iPhone. Or I could have just kept it on the phone and generated right to Zoom. It's all possible. And everybody can do that. Almost everybody. Almost everybody who's supposed to got an iPhone. I mean, just walk around some place and see how many people have got that damn thing stuck up in their face as they're walking along. Yeah, me, I'm walking handicapped. And that's all I see are people walking with their phones up. Because I'm wondering, are you going to look up to see me? Or do I have to go, hey, 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 and get your attention? Because I don't have any problem falling. I fall really good. Getting up's a pain in the butt. But you got an iPhone? Let's talk about a demonstration. Get it out there and show us. If you don't do a finish, do a prep for a finish. Or we always talk about getting that super finish. You know the super finish I've been talking about, where the grain just magically appears and dances. And I describe it as a piece that winks at you when you cross a room. You go across the room, you look at the piece, and you say, "Hi." You waved at me, I'm waving back at you because you look so good. You're catching the light and making it pop back, and it's reflecting light back. Guess what that is? That's a perfectly finished piece because number one, you cut it right, you didn't gouge it out and tear it out. You sanded it right, and you sanded it to the right grits and removed all the scratches and lines. And then you put a good finish on to enhance all that so you can see through the finish. No scratches, no lines, no hazing or anything. And it all got to stand out. Hey, how'd you do that? How did you manage to get one that pops like that? And we see that on pieces. Somebody last week had a segmented piece. Yeah, I'm terrible at remembering names. Really, I got mine embroidered on my underwear. It's just it's you look at it and go, wow, it stands out because he's got a good finish on it. He cut it right. He treated it right. He sanded it right. He finished it right, and it just seems to spark, seems to dance back at you. That is magic. And if we could get a demo from you, and remember, we do have that nobody guarantee, and it stands for everything and everybody in this club. It's a nobody guarantee. There's no way in the world I'm going to tell you that's nice, but, or can you do this, but, or that's nice, but that won't work. We want to see what you can do, and I'll take something from what you show. I'll learn something from it. I might see some items there that my brain will say, don't do that. And I might see things that my brain will say, why the hell didn't you do that? Talking to me, why didn't you do it? First time I saw someone do it, to see finished trout. I said, wow, how did I miss that? That was so simple. How did I miss that? I wouldn't have went back and did that. And, and is that necessary? And why? And a good demonstration will explain it. Sometimes we go through life too fast. So we're looking for demonstrations of doing that. And it's never a step down demonstration. Never, ever a step down. There's no such thing. Every one of us starts with a start button. Every one of us cuts by cutting. Every one of us ends when finishing. So the same thing happens every time all of us cut, all of us turn. So there's no step down demos. I'd like to see how you do it, and it's any part of it. I watched the video today with the guy in the spoke shave trimming down an axe handle, slipping an axe onto it. And I thought to myself, if people saw that, they'd throw away their block plane, they'd throw away their grinder, and they'd get out the spoke shave and learn how to use it, because he was taking feathers off of that spoke plane. Just beautiful, dressing it off, and it was fitting like a glove. And that guy knew how his tool cut. And that same philosophy will work with your tools. Mark Slade's shown it to us so many times. You get away from the gadgets and the ideas and the knickknacks and all that, and you think about just how wood cuts, how wood slices, and how simple it can be. I watched a great ornamental turner the other day doing ivory. He's a fourth generation ivory turner. Duxbury sent me that video.
Right.
Yeah, that guy, you sent me that video on the other day, and I watched it, and he's the fanciness of his tools. He's using scrapers.
Oh, junk.
Yeah,
All
Yep.
sharpened right. They got to be sharpened right. Yep.
scrapers,
Yep.
and the work is awesome. Scrapers. There was no hooks, no gizmos, no gadgets, no carbide, nothing. Scrapers. And he's turned out some absolutely gorgeous work. And you think, well, I wonder what kind of machine he uses. If you saw this, you wouldn't believe it. If you saw the work he turns out, then you definitely wouldn't believe it. But he knows how his tools cut. He understands it. And that's where we all need to go. So give me a demonstration. Give us a demonstration. Show us something you know that somebody else should learn or can learn from. You know, it's all worth it.
And apparently he started on a treadle lathe.
Really. Well, I built one 15
Yeah.
years ago.
Back before they had water wheels.
Before they invented water. Okay. I built a trail about 15 years ago. And in fact, it was 2008. I built a trail lathe, and I built it for my home club. And it was immediately told, after I had it just about finished, we weren't interested in it. Because it was going to require some more folks to add some components to it. And I was just told it wasn't a project they were interested in after I had almost a year into it. And I gave it to a guy in Arkansas, right outside of an Air Force base up there in Arkansas. The guy traveled down there to get it, but I built it, and I had a steel flywheel made to give it some weight. And I could honestly believe that with that in the inertia I could generate with that and the ease of pumping it, I could have done that work on a treadle with that ivory. It was gorgeous. But
That's very cool. Treadle lathe is on my list of things to have. So
yeah,
Not mine. I'm lazy.
I may not ever use it, but I want one.
It was one of those things to where I just got it. I got the plans out of an English workshop book, and from England. The hardest thing was breaking the language barrier because it was written for English people. And and I actually have to go find a friend of mine who's a tailor. He's British, and ask him what would that mean. And they have to read it a few times and say, "Oh yeah, this is meaning such and such." And it was like one of those hurdles I had to jump over. But where it turned, put bushings in, I put bearings in, put really good bearings in, and the shafts. I had a shaft machined instead of just stock stuff. So I had put some new age improvements in it, but it was one of those things where if they could have done this with rudimentary tools and came out with a really nice machine, what can I do in a better shop? What can I do in recreating this as a piece of furniture, of wanted furniture, and something that will last? And it was an interesting piece. I would love to have kept it. Just got to be burning in my chest after I got it all done. The offer was made and off it went. But I was asked to build a spring pole before I had my brain problem. I was considering building a spring pole. But that probably would have taken me away. It's not, see, that was the rudimentary part of turning. The art of turning be, what tool would you use when you're doing that? And it'd be interesting to see, but we're shopping for demonstrators. We got some openings coming up in this month. We got a little room to fit them in, and we always have time for little 5-minute demos. If you got a little brief one, remember, you don't have to fill a soup can to have soup. If we have it a little brief demonstration from you that we can fit into our meetings, we'd love to have it. That's what makes them interesting. As Al said, you come here because everything goes in the stew. Everything goes in the stew. And it makes for an interesting dinner. So if you got something to show for gallery tonight, put it up on the chat because we have our gallery master. Matt's taking care of that. He's logging you in. And when you have something to show, say I have something to show, Matt will introduce you. When he does, then begin showing your piece. Have it available. Have it up there. And if you're a new member, you haven't said hello and signed in, tell us you're a new member. Hello. Hi, how you doing? And if you are a fairly new member, you haven't brought a friend, bring a friend along. You get a discount on your membership. And I give those discounts away all the time. And remember, the newsletter's out today. Fantastic work in that newsletter. And above all else, don't miss Brenda. Brenda's in the newsletter. Yeah. And it was a big deal. I saw it on Facebook. Brenda, newsletter. But you can be there too. You can outdo her. It's easy. All right. Who's up for gallery tonight, man?
Well, speaking of Brenda, she's first up.
Oh, there she is.
Hi, Brenda.
Hi, guys. Eddie, you crack me up. All right, so I've not had a real good week. I had a piece of wood on the lathe last week. Went out, started making a bowl, and that thing exploded on me.
Let's see the hands. Any Band-Aids?
No Band-Aids.
Oh, okay. All
I
right.
did pinch my finger that night. I did get a little blood blister there, but
Okay, hold it up again.
see a little blood blister?
Okay. See it better now.
Yeah. No blood, no blood, no
Little 3408 on there, Brenda.
necessary. So that one hit the trash, but then I was able to, I've been redoing my bathroom and got a new cabinet in there. So I made some knobs for the
I gotta
drawers.
see this.
Now, here's one of them.
All right. I like the depression.
Yeah, I wanted it, indented it on the top, made it curved here. So, fit your fingers.
Nice little cove.
Yeah. Here's another one of them.
It
There
looks
you go.
great.
And there's the jig I used to do the top of it. Yeah, put a screw through it. Yeah.
Very
it's
cool. Do you
it's
have
still-
an insert in there? Do you have an insert in there? Or is it just tapped or threaded, or what's the deal?
Nope, I just put the screw through it.
Gotcha.
Rear
Okay,
knob,
cool.
It's just straight threaded. Nice.
Yep. It's just
Sounds
drilled.
like a demo to me, Brenda.
Oh no. Actually, I learned how to do this from Ron Radcliffe on YouTube. I made 3 more of them. 3 more of them they're on the cabinet. So these are Do I?
He's very good to watch.
Yes, he made 32 of them in his video. It was awesome. Every one of them different. So
Who did them?
He's doing better.
it was Ron
It's
Radler.
easy to make them different. It's hard to make them the same.
Exactly.
Ron is doing better. Ron Radcliffe has moved back home, so he's doing better.
I didn't even know this and had a
I
line.
like the little depression in that one.
Oh, but
It's got
Like
some
that?
character.
I like that depression.
that's the rest of them. But I only put 3 on there anyway. So anyway, today I went back out, and today I made.
Oh, there you go.
Ice cream paddle.
Yep. I've got 2 of the kits still. This one and another one. My youngest daughter don't have one yet, so and I like to make the bottoms of them nice and flat so they stand up. And
That's yeah.
this one is made out of canary wood. I love canary wood. And this one's got a Parfex finish on it. Love it.
It looks nice.
Yeah. Now,
Cool.
then we get back to the bad day. But I was able to finish a bowl, which does not look good. But it is
Looks
usually
good from here. Wow.
it's
Yeah, I liked it. Was
very punky.
Absolutely.
It looks great, Brenda.
It's
Right.
very
What is it?
it's not very smooth. And I've not waxed it yet, but
What kind of wood is that?
I assume it's mulberry or maple.
Malted maple.
Looks like malted maybe, right?
It was very spalted, very punky.
Right.
but
Looks
you
like it
can-
probably was. Well, you saved it. It looks pretty.
I was just glad it didn't blow up on me.
Right? Right?
Yeah,
Hey,
that's a-
we take our
that's a-
victories where we get
Right
them.
now, it's a nice little nut bowl.
Yes.
You know,
Yep.
for the holidays.
Yep. My
All for the nuts.
my youngest daughter wanted a bowl, and she wanted this is what she wants for Christmas. Stuff that I've made. So this is what she's getting.
Well, I'll tell
That's
you what,
good.
you're from the heart.
Yep. So
that
that's all.
that bowl is a beautiful piece of work. It is.
This one, it is finished with Parfex 3408. Yep,
Of course.
There you go.
of course.
That ought to bust up.
Yep. That's all I got,
Good
guys.
job, Brenda.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Brenda. Nice work.
Which means
Next
you can
up is-
put popcorn in it and it won't get spoiled.
There you
Next
go.
up is Al.
Now, again, I ask this every time. Can you see me better this way or this way?
The other way.
First way.
The other way? Okay.
Yeah.
The phone horizontally. I worked on 3, maybe 4, no, 2, maybe 3 different pieces this week, and they're not able to be looked at right now. I followed Ruby. Ruby, it's nice to see that you made it home safe. I followed a lot of you over in England on your vacation and stuff. I saw that you visited Colin Way. Am I right?
Correct.
Right. And you guys made I think it was a nutcracker.
Correct.
Yep. This one's mine.
Oh, he's coming out great.
I went and I went to a couple. He has he's a wood turner. He's a wood turner. I have to find him a lathe. You know, but yeah, I followed his couple of videos. It's again, it's just out of scrap wood that you have. It was harder trying to decorate it.
Looks nice.
Good
Very,
job.
very fun.
Beautiful.
You did a good job.
Well, you inspired me. Hey, hey, can you be my aunt also?
Sure, I could probably be your aunt as well.
It's a nice. Anyways, again, uh, Cap, thank you very much.
You're welcome. That's beautiful.
Great. I've such a. Yeah,
Now,
and,
have you actually
there's a big
crunched any
story.
nuts with it?
No, you really have to reinforce it. But there's a big story behind the Nutcracker. It's a very old English story where by having it in your house throughout the year, it protects you and you always have to show teeth, which I don't have yet. Am I talking the right thing? Ruby, did he tell you about the story of where they all have to show teeth? But
Right. I don't have the teeth in mine yet. Mine's not painted and dressed yet.
I have. I'm going to make, I think, at least 2 more of these. This is my prototype, but it's so much fun. It's so simple. It's the most simplest thing in the world to make. Just a little tiny little spindle work. I think I made the feet too fat. The feet are, now if you think about it, if you can look close, they look kind of identical because it's a split turning. You have
Sure.
a little piece of wood, and you glue it together with a little bit of paper in between it, and you make it a shape of a peanut. You make it a shape of a peanut. Now imagine that, and that being how can I say it? That would be the bottom, and if you turned around, I don't know how could explain it, but that is a split of something that I made that made it look like a peanut.
Gotcha.
And that's what I split, and they were the feet. And then I took a Forstner bit. I drilled down a little bit to have the legs fit inside. Is that the way he did it in that afternoon that you were with him, Ruby?
Yep.
I tell you what, he's very interesting. Very interesting. But and I cut my arms whatever the way I wanted and stuff like that. And the way it's so simple to make the jaw work, and but that's my 2 cents. So
All right. Well, thank you very much, Al. Nice work.
Very cool.
Good
Next
job,
up
Al.
is
Yep.
Dave.
everybody have a good evening.
You too.
Well, hate to break it to everybody, but I've made another bowl.
Is it on a cherry again, Dave?
That's cherry.
Beautiful.
This one has a little bit of a bark inclusion
Yeah.
rather than the usual pitch spots, but came out rather well. And then last week I mentioned that I had 3D printed some fixtures for my shop. And I gotta figure out how to share screen here for a second. Oh, there we go. Did I do that right?
Have the photos up first, and then click on share, and then select your photo.
Okay, well, here's the photos. There we go.
There you go. It's working. Now
There's my rack with my chucks and a couple of face plates. My 2-inch jaws are on my lathe at the moment. But this particular style I got from Creality. It was a free
Okay.
download. But I did notice others on. There were others.
Thingiverse.
Thingiverse, yeah.
Yeah.
And how do I go to the next slide? I have another. I have another slide. Oh, here we go. And I printed this too.
We can't see it. So what you need to do is, so what you got to do now is stop screen share, and then actually open up the photo. And then from there, once you're in the photo, you do the share screen, and then you'll be able to cycle through the photos of what you have. But you got to
Okay.
have the actual photo up, because right now we're just seeing your drive folder and the snapshot, the thumbnail of the picture.
Okay, now, how do I, can you tell I've never done this before?
No, no, we can't do it at all. Okay, so in your file folder, open up your photos first. Open up the photos that you want to show.
Okay,
Do you have
Well,
them
here's-
open?
yeah, here's the other one.
Not the so you're not sharing screen right now. So open your
Okay.
photos and it'll come up in, it should come
Hold
up,
on.
large screen.
The photo's open.
Okay, now go back down to share. There you go.
There we go. And this is nice flexible. It goes, you see on the right hand edge, you see where it's duct taped to a 4-inch hose that goes straight into a whole house fan. It goes right straight out through the wall. And this flexes around. You can see the edge of uh,
Taurus.
my banjo is right there.
Banjo?
And so this flips around and I flip the switch and it sucks it right off. It's nice. Very nice.
Cool.
Very cool.
Yes. And that's,
You made each one of them pieces then?
yes. And
Wow.
the reason for the different colors is I started with white and I ran out.
Very nice.
Wow.
Yeah,
Great
great
work.
job on that, Dave.
Yeah, and these I looked around to see where I got these files, but there's more than one place for them. And there are different shapes of the end scoop, that sort of thing. So it was a lot of fun. The only pain about it is it takes so long to print anything. Because I have a lower end printer. But it works. And that's about all I had time for this week. I spent a day in the dentist chair, so
How loud is it?
loud as what?
How
The
loud
printer?
is what you're hearing? Well,
It's not very loud. It's not very loud, Al.
It's not very loud, it just takes forever. Like what I finally decided to do was work on a little bit more faith. And I started it up and just walked out and checked on it in an hour or two.
all right.
Like
Okay.
each one of those sections for the flexible thing took almost 2 hours to print. Which sounds like a lot, but I found out that on Sunday afternoon I can start it up and go watch a football game and not worry about it. Checking it
Yeah,
out.
right.
Yeah, that works.
You can go turn a bowl.
Yeah, well, I usually don't turn during a good football game. I do have a TV in there, but it's too distracting.
I see.
But that's it. That's it for my week.
Great week.
All right.
Right on. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. Good work. Next up is Billy Burt. He says he's got something.
Finally,
What you got,
been a
Billy?
while. I was commissioned to make a cigar ashtray. So I took this piece of spalted blackjack oak, and you can see, well, you might can see, there's grooves at each corner. I left it square so there would be room to lay the cigar so that it didn't fall off,
Yep.
and so that it didn't dip into the bottom here and burn the wood or go out. Most cigar smokers don't put their cigars out. They just lay them down and let them go out if they
Right.
don't finish them. I put blue Corian in the bottom. I cut a little recess out and sized the Corian. The bottom is
Beautiful.
shaped, and it's like it's almost a merging bowl because the angles, as you can see, for the lip and the bottom line up but the grain in this blackjack oak is just amazing. You can see along each edge the quarter sawn fleck.
Gorgeous.
And the spalting is cool. So I'm happy with it. I'm not. It's got one coat of tung oil on it right now. Pure tung oil. I'm not sure what I'm going to use. I may use Danish oil. It just depends on whether or not the customer wants it glossy or more satiny like this. I'll continue with oil like a Danish oil if he wants it more satiny. If he wants it glossy, I'll probably shoot it with gloss polyurethane. But finally back on the lathe doing something. I still got to burn my logo in the bottom. But I'm pretty happy with it. I think he's gonna like it.
Yes. How deep
Looks
is the
good.
well?
Pardon?
Billy, how deep is the bowl?
The bowl is a total of 2 inches thick.
Oh, okay.
So the well is probably 1.75 inches because this is really thin. It's got really soft and really thin. The piece of Corian inlay is 1/8 of an inch thick.
Yeah.
And so I've got about 1/16 of an inch here, and this dips down about 1/8. So yeah, it's about 1.75 inches deep.
Okay.
Should the grooves
Right
for the
on.
cigar be natural rather than have an oil finish on them? That could affect the taste of the cigar, I would think.
Say again, Jim?
Should the grooves where you lay the cigar be a natural wood rather than oil finish? Oil would affect the taste. I'm not a big cigar smoker, okay, but I think,
I suppose it could if the oil wasn't fully cured.
yeah,
But tung oil will dry and cure. Pure tung
yeah,
oil
yeah.
will dry and cure. So I'm not too worried about that. And if I use a Danish oil, it'll dry and cure as well.
Yeah. Nice job.
So I don't think it'll impart any flavor to speak of. But that's what I've been up to this week. Finally gotten to turn something.
It looks
It
great.
looks like it was fun, something to turn, that's for sure.
It was.
was
And I
that was a
used
pretty
my
I like doing that.
thank you. To cut my grooves, I put a cove bit in my palm router and used the fluting setup that I've got in the table. And I just made sure that these were perpendicular or not perpendicular. I made sure the corners were parallel to the table
Right.
and just ran my cove bit over here, turned it and did the same thing. And then because I didn't have a big enough cove bit, I took my Dremel sander my Dremel tool with the big sanding drum, and I made these a little bit bigger, what I think is about the size of most cigars. So
I grew up both of my
I'm all
paps
in
had
all,
one
I'm
of
pretty
those.
happy with it.
Absolutely. That's a pretty one.
Thank you. That's all I
Okay,
got.
Okay, very nice. Very nice. Next up is
Thank you,
Joaquin.
everyone.
JJ, you muted.
Yeah, I got 2 things to show you guys. I have a truckload of prepped bowl blanks, both red oak and white oak, from trees downed by Hurricane Helene in Mills River, North Carolina. Those are available for $10 donation per blank. That donation goes straight to Samaritan's Purse and shipping because they're green and they're heavy. But every single dime is going to Samaritan's Purse. Samaritan's Purse is located in Boone, North Carolina. They were physically affected by the
Shipping's
hurricane,
gonna be expensive.
but they're
All the
people
money even from shipping is going to the
living
charity.
in tents right now in the 20s and teens and snow up there in the mountains of North Carolina. And Samaritan's Purse Samaritan's Purse is the only organization that's been there from the beginning because they live there. So this is a red oak bowl from the Hurricane Wood. I still have to finish the bottom, but I just wanted to show you the quality. I turned this Friday. It's green, but I turned it down to a 1/4 inch at the top, and it's 3/16 at the bottom, and it has not even. It maybe has moved about 2 millimeters, maybe. It really hasn't misshapen very much at all, so it's doing really well. Contact me through my Facebook page if you'd like to donate. Again, I'm not keeping any money. I experienced disaster relief after the tsunami in Sumatra in 2004. I spent the entire month of January of 2005 in Sumatra cleaning up after the tsunami, and the damage in the mountains is the same damage I saw in Sumatra, but it's here in America. And I'm not physically able to go up there and help, but this is a way I can help as a wood turner. So go to my Facebook page. There's a post with a list of the blanks that are available. Message me there. And I am doing a tax deductible receipt with the EIN for Samaritan's Purse. But that's not the big deal I want to show you guys. And the reason I'm showing you this is because there's one more issue of the newsletter before this is available to you. So we're going to share screen here. Maybe. This is the first newsletter I laid out back on January 3rd of this year. We're about 26 pages in. We're about 54 pages in. We're about 90 pages in. So with today's newsletter added, the book I am making is 76 pages long. And when I add the final newsletter for this month, I will have a document that is the entirety of the year of 2024 of our newsletters, all of it, the whole thing. Hopefully, I don't know if Facebook page will support it or not. Hopefully it will. But this is volume 1 of our newsletter, Wood Turners Worldwide. And this will be available free of charge to everybody. You download the PDF. I'm going to do a little investigating and see where you can take the file to print it. I think places like Kinko's, Office Max, my FedEx store does printing of large files.
Mailbox.
Yeah, or UPS store, those kind of places. So I just want to give you all a heads up. You will literally have a book available of the newsletter at the end of the year with every issue from the year in this book.
That's awesome, JJ.
JJ, are we still going to try and do a how-to project separately also?
Yes. So the first issue last year, I asked the club to send me their pictures of their best piece from 2023, and that was that first issue. The year in review for 2024 is going to be all of the projects, all the how-tos from the year 2023. So from beginning to end, that's going to be the January. Is it the 3rd? I think it's the first Wednesday.
January 1st is the first Wednesday.
Yeah, okay, so New Year's Day, that issue will be 2024 year in review, and it'll be all the how-tos.
Okay. Nice.
Wow.
Cool.
Great job.
Hell yeah.
Unbelievable.
Incredible.
That's all I've got.
All right. Thank you,
Very
JJ.
cool. Very cool.
All right,
Thanks very much for all the hard work.
Let's do a couple more gallery, and then we'll do
We
safety.
just keep
and
getting
we'll have
better and better and better.
have our demo.
Okay, next up is Ruby.
Hey, Ruby.
Okay. I'm not going to show you my nutcracker because he's not even close to being done. But while I was in England, I had mentioned that I really like turning yew, and that over here, what we get instead of trees of yew, we only get shrubs. So when I was at the wood show demonstrating, I was gifted with a couple of yew logs, which I brought home, but I couldn't bring them home in the form I was given them, mainly because I'd have needed a bigger suitcase. So what I did was I took one of the smaller pieces and I made a couple of yew mushrooms out of them.
Oh,
Very nice.
very nice.
Beautiful.
And the bigger
Beautiful.
the
Beautiful.
bigger pieces I roughed down into some bowls and left them about an inch thick so they can dry. But I did manage to get one finished piece, and that was the goblet.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Very nice.
That's
Very pretty
gorgeous.
wood.
Did you see
Nice work,
Stuart?
Ruby.
Lovely.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So it was, I didn't realize how many people I knew over there. When I first got there, I went into the hotel and I walked into the lobby and there's a couple there, and the fellow says to me, "Oh, it's Ruby." And I said, "Yes, but I can't put a name with your face." As soon as he introduced himself, I recognized him from one of the chat groups. And I'll bet in the first 3 days I met over 300 people who made a point of introducing themselves to me. It was overwhelming, to say the least.
They're great.
Sounds good. Sounds great.
That's great. Auntie.
And as soon as I got there, I opened my suitcase and it started to snow. And I'll tell you, the British countryside covered with a blanket of snow is beautiful. When I came home, as soon as I hit Toronto and opened my suitcase, it snowed there as well. And of course, I brought it all the way down here. So I take full responsibility for the snow we're getting.
We'd like to see you, Ruby, but don't
White
come here, okay?
Christmas, Jesus is snow. Do-do.
Anyway, that's enough of me, so I'll let you go on with the next person, please.
Thanks.
All right,
Thanks,
thank you,
Ruby.
Ruby.
Great work. Next up is Daniel Smith. What you got, Daniel?
Got to figure out which camera to take off mute. Still muted.
That
There
Yeah,
you go.
okay. Well, I've got a few little things to show you.
Look at this camera though.
ooh,
Nice.
I made that one up, and yeah, it's just you know what it is. So
Sea urchin ornament.
yeah,
Nice finial on it.
What'd you make the finials out of?
actually, it was a table leg that somebody threw away, and I took the legs,
There you go.
Perfect.
and I made this with cross on top,
Hanging
with a
higher.
bell, and a bell here.
Oh, that's cool.
Very nice.
that is cool.
A lot going on there.
Yeah, it's a little, to me, it's a little chunky, but it's okay. It works.
I like the cross.
And then I made this one. I wanted a little extra color with it. And I
Mhm.
put a little captured ring in it.
Oh, cute.
Cool.
Love that cross on top.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
That's cool.
Love it.
Then I made that one.
Very nice.
How'd you color the urchin?
That's with dye.
Wow.
Ritz. I put Ritz dye on it, and it worked out quite well.
Oh, good.
Like I said, I was busy making these.
Oh, pretty.
There you were.
That's got a beautiful shine to it.
Job.
Now, what kind of wood is that one? Is that a table leg as well, or?
Yes, that's a table leg, and I put what did I? Oh no, this is walnut. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Mhm.
beautiful.
Yep.
I had to look at it because down here there's a part of the center,
The
and
pit?
it
Okay.
kind of rotted, but I left it in there. And what else am I going to do with it?
Yeah.
Can't tell now.
That's beautiful.
And I'm not a real big fan of the green ones, but
Nice.
You could always paint them.
yeah. But I want a few of them that were green, so
Somebody will love it.
Yep.
yep.
Well, you've certainly been busy.
How many did you make?
I think 9 or 10. And I got some more over here. This is the first one I made with the cross.
Is that ebony?
This is actually, what did I put on there? Ritz brown dye.
Ah,
Nice.
Very nice.
Wow.
And I got 2 more to show.
Ooh, pretty. Pretty colors.
Yep.
What color is that?
This is the walnut too, and this is that gilding.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
Cool.
Very
I like that one. That's nice.
And last but not least,
Just a showstopper?
just a little tiny one.
Ooh, what kind of wood is that?
That I could not tell you. It was at Woodcrafters, and it was unmarked.
Mm-hmm.
Picked it up, said I kind of like it.
Mm-hmm.
Made it.
What is it, like brown and black wood?
Yeah,
White in it?
yep.
Looks like marble wood or zebra.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It kind of looks like marble wood.
Yeah.
took a nice shine, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Love it.
Well done there, Daniel.
This
Looks
right
nice.
This one I'm going to paint, and I got the bottom fit icicle done,
Cool.
but it actually was for something else, and it broke off. It's funny because it broke off. Try and set this together kind of for you. And it was going to be that long. And then this was on the bottom. Just did it a little too small. And here's another one of them table legs. And if you're using table legs or something that you pick up, I thought this drill hole ended up in here. Well, this drill hole ended up down here, right in the middle of it. And I got another little captive ring on this one. So
The next time you know to shove a small drill down in to find out how deep it is.
actually, but I got it mixed up with this other piece that was only real short. So yeah.
Right on, Dan.
You know, Daniel, you could save that by putting a plug in the hole, put it back in your chuck and turn it again. And you could probably save
Right,
that.
yeah.
Then it'd be a recovery piece.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, good idea, Tim.
Yeah, highlight it. Yeah.
Or even make it a
Shove a
different
piece of
color.
make yourself a walnut pin and shove down in there. Return it.
Yep. Good.
Lots of options.
Yeah. I might try it out.
Especially since you got that captive ring on there, needs saved.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. Or you could just get your Dremel out and get crazy on it.
Or you can just throw it away and chuck up another table leg.
Oh,
That's what I'll probably do.
You know what?
All right.
What Dane
Save
would
it.
do.
Save it. He's got enough work in it. He needs to save it.
Yeah, I agree.
Just toss it and do another one.
That was a lot of fun making them. And
Yeah, it looks like it.
got a Christmas tree with white lights, and the only thing on it is these urchins.
Oh,
And
cool.
Very
got
cool.
people coming over, and they'll probably be going just as fast as I made them or faster.
Right?
So
Yeah, good for you.
There you go.
I'll
All
show
right,
you.
Well,
thanks.
thanks.
You got a second? I'll show you one that I'm coloring.
Okay.
Ooh,
Oh, that looks
Nice.
nice.
that is pretty.
Good colors.
That's quite different.
What's
Yeah.
that?
So what
Purple and-
colors
that's
you got
nice.
on there?
That
We know it's red. What color?
color shift. And I'm trying. I can't think of the names of them, but
No, okay.
Beautiful.
Looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
I
I love
Very,
those
very
colors.
creative, Dan.
want something with a little color on the tree.
Mhm.
Sure,
Yes.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll.
Yeah, very
That's
nice.
pretty. Really pretty. Lovely color.
I was watching videos on finials, and so this is kind of my interpretation of an onion.
Okay.
Sure.
Sure. Yeah.
And I found out anything really works. So go out and just have fun.
Right.
I don't draw out a design. I kind of do what people say. Let the wood talk to me.
There you go.
There you go.
Looks great.
Okay.
That'll be one
Thanks,
for
Dan.
next-
Thank you, Dan. All right. It's almost top of the hour, so that means we're up for our safety moment. Hey, Sue.
I'm having help
Get us
here
all
with,
safe.
so it's going to be, it's all about the little things. And we're going to talk about chuck safety. A lot of this is common sense, but it's, some people just don't get it. So anyways, turn off the lathe before trying to tighten your chuck. I mean, if your chuck thing was in there and you had that lathe going, you've already been hit in the head and maybe lost a few teeth. So come on. Frequently, check the tightness of the chuck, but remember, turn off your lathe. Assure that the back of the chuck is firmly positioned against the headstock with no threads exposed. Use a washer to fill the place between the back of the chuck and the headstock. A lot of us get the plastic or rubber washers that go behind our chucks. It's a good thing to have, and that way your chucks don't tighten so hard that it takes the Hulk in order to unscrew the chuck. Make sure that the wood lies flat against the jaws of the chuck. If it's wavy, don't. Sand down that or whatever you got to do to make it flat, because that has to be against your chuck. Assure that the chuck key, adjusting the wrenches and knockout air bars are removed before turning on the lathe. And that's a duplicate of what I just said at the beginning of it. But all those things can be quite dangerous if you don't follow the rules of safety. Make sure that everything is tight. Make sure that when you tighten or adjust anything, turn the lathe off, because safety is first. And I'd love to see you here next week. Take care now.
Thank you, Sue.
Good info there, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
You're welcome.
If you can do the little stuff, then the hard stuff should be easy,
Yeah, you would think so. So yeah.
right?
I can't imagine trying to tighten a chuck with it spinning.
I know it. Can you imagine that? But that's the first line of our chuck safety on our own website. And it's good to remember that, don't try that with your key in there. My gosh, I can't even imagine. So
I can't either.
So please, guys, be safe this week, and good luck getting ready for Christmas. Take care now.
Yeah, right on. All right. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Sue.
All right. We are at the top of the hour, so now we are going to go across the pond to Mr. Paul Hannaby. He's going to do a nice little demo for us this evening. Typical housekeeping is any other week for any other demo. Let's keep our comments and questions during the demo. We'll hold them till the end. If you have a question during the demo, you can put it in the chat, and I will ask the question at appropriate times when Paul is not turning. Otherwise, unless Paul wants to sequester questions from the group, then that's up to Paul. Beyond that, I'm going to mute everybody. And Paul, you will need to unmute yourself. So I'm muting everybody now.
Okay.
And I got you. And I hear you.
Okay. Evening, everyone, or morning in my case. I haven't been in for a while, just been busy with other things, but I haven't forgotten about you, honestly.
Oh, we know.
Yeah, what I've got planned for tonight, I'll just show you this first. This is something I made quite a few years ago. I'm going to move over to one of my other cameras. The lighting's probably better, so I'm just going to move over here. Right, I'll just hold it there. It's a hollow form I made out of master birch a few years ago now. But what I've done here is coloured it with spirit dyes and used multiple colours that I've sort of applied and cut back to some extent to shade sort of different sections. And it's the figuring in the wood that's made the colouring work the way it has. Really, the camera and the lighting here isn't really doing this justice. There's a lot more detail in the colour than you can pick up, and you get the chatoyance in the wood that is showing different colours as I move it. So it changes depending on the angles you look at it as well. So one thing I like about master birch, it's an expensive wood, but for things like that, it works really well. But I know one or two people I've sort of seen are a bit horrified that I'm putting colours on a wood like this, but I think it just works really well. But what I want to do tonight is to show you the sort of the essentials of the colouring process and how I do that. I'm not going to make a hollow form because that would probably take a bit too long, but I'm going to do a bowl or two to show you the colouring process. So I've got a couple of blanks here. This one, I'm not entirely sure what the wood is, but if I hold it so the light's sort of reflecting on it, you can see there's some ripple figuring across the surface of that. And likewise on the other side, it was in amongst a pile of blanks I bought a little while ago, and it's got no label on it, so I'm not entirely sure what it is. Most of it's a light color, and then there's a darker patch here, so I don't think it's something like sycamore because it wouldn't have that darker wood. But anyway, I'm going to start with that one, and then I've got a couple of other blanks. Another one that's it's horse chestnut. That's another one that's quite nice. You get some quite nice figure in it. So we'll hopefully have time to at least do a couple of these and try a couple of different things with the colors. So start with this one. So I've got the blank pre-drilled. I'm going to use a screw chuck, as you can see there. And I've got a spacer on the screw chuck just to shorten the screw, because this is a moderately shallow blank. It's not much more than about 1 inch. So I've sort of half the length of the screw for a small blank like this. And really, on this particular screw chuck, it's about 3/8 diameter, the outside diameter of that screw. And the core, you drill it to 5/16. So it's quite a strong screw with a fairly strong thread, and that length of like half of the screw is, I'd say, 1/2 inch or so length, and that's plenty to hold on to a smallish blank. So I'm going to put that onto the screw. First step. And when you put a piece of wood onto a screw chuck like this, what you're trying to do is to make sure that's screwed on as tight as you can get it, so that the top face of your blank is tight against either the screw, the face of the screw chuck itself, or in this case the wooden spacer. That way you're transferring all the cutting forces into the screw chuck and into the lathe, rather than it all being borne by the screw. Because if you do that and it's a bit loose and the screw's taking all the force, then you'll end up with a bent screw basically. So it's essential that it's done up tight. I've set my rest up a little below center. All I'm going to do initially is clean up this front face. Can switch to that one there, so you can see both. My other camera's upside down. Give me a second. Reconfigure that one.
I think Al's been over there messing with your cameras.
Yeah. Right. Find the right button. Not that one. Right. Just bear with me. Just trying to read the menu on this camera upside down. What I've done here is, I think I can't know if you remember in my previous demos where I had the camera on the end of the lathe. It was, hang on. It was the locking screw on the tailstock was just getting in the way of the shot, so I've moved it and put it just a little higher so it doesn't. But instead of having the camera hanging beneath, it's now hanging above. So that's why. Right. Yeah.
There we go.
That should do it. So I forgot about that. I should have. I'll get rid of that. That's it. Right, good. So got the camera the right way around now. Good. So yeah, initially I'm just going to flatten off this front face. I've at the moment the speed on the lathe is set to minimum. So I'll start the lathe off, and my usual procedure here is to get out of the way. If I forget something and that comes off, I don't want to be in the firing line. So I'll stand out of the way, bring the speed up. I mean, it's a smallish blank, so it's probably overkill in this case, but it's just my normal way of working. And if I do it all the time, then I'm not going to forget when it does matter. So I'll take that up to, I don't know, 1200 RPM, something like that. For a smallish blank, that's probably okay. I'm just going to use a spindle gouge and use a pull cut. So I'm using the left wing against the wood just to draw it back across the face. All I'm trying to do is flatten that off as my initial sort of clean up. And really it's only the center that matters at this stage, because I just want to flatten off enough of this so I can sort out a spigot and then mount it on the chuck when I need to. So I've already set a pair of dividers here to the diameter of the chuck jaws I'm going to use. It's 1.5 jaws. So I can just eyeball that across the center, left point against the rest, and just adjust the position so the line I scribe is equally spaced across the center. So that's my mark for my screw chuck. And then I just need to remove a bit of wood to expose that spigot. And I'm just using a pull cut, pulling it into the wood, taking bites, sort of heading towards the center. I'm using a fairly shallow set of jaws. I'm using the Axminster O'Donnell jaws, which are just under 5 millimeters deep. What's that, about 3/16?
Yep.
So, and I've got a depth gauge here set to the depth of the jaw, so I can use that to gauge whether I'm deep enough or not. So let's go a little bit deeper. That's going to be close enough. So that's just taking off enough wood to expose my sort of the spigot there. Now I just need to shape it. So next step, point the bevel straight down the bed of lathe. So I've got the bevel parallel to the bed of the lathe. I'll put the tip of the tool on that line I scribed and then just push the tool towards the headstock. So initially I'm just creating a straight spigot, and that's done that. And then I can use my depth gauge just to check that, and that is pretty much exactly the depth of the jaws, or albeit just a whisker beneath. So that's 4 and a bit millimeters, or 3/16, I think. So I'm about right there. So that should be okay. The other thing I'll do at this point, whether I need it or not, is to make a center mark. So I'm just going to move the tool rest out of the way, having turned the lane off, as you can see. With a regular blank like this, it's not too big a deal. Oh, just bear with me a sec. I had some students in my workshop today, and one of them was using this lathe, and he's over tightened the clamp, and it just jams when you do that. So got to give it a tap there, and then it'll free up the tailstock. Well, it usually works. Yeah, that's better. That's it. It's freed it up. Yeah, I had this one chap working on this lathe, and he was a little bit nervous and wasn't entirely paying attention to everything I said. But I did say to him, I said to him more than once. I said, just like finger tight is all you need on that. Like one finger, just do that, and that's it. But I think he got both hands on it and leant on it, so it's a bit over tight. So anyway, that's fine. I've loosened it up now. This blank, there's a little just there, a little bark inclusion on the corner, but as I shape this bowl on the outside, that will disappear. So all should be good. So I'm just going to shape the outside, and again sticking with the pull cups, using that left wing just to take off some of the outside of this piece of wood. Doing a fairly simple shape. I mean, you can sort of play around with shape to your heart's content, really, but here I'm just going to keep it fairly simple. And I'll cut a little step where the jaws are going to be. So I'm defining a foot at this stage. If I colour all of the outside of this, then I don't want to have to be returning any part of it, obviously, because then I've got to redo the colouring. So I'm shaping everything as I want it now. Let's just see how that looks. So I'll just a shallow sort of reverse curve at the bottom. Yeah, that's not looking too bad figuring wise. There's some ripple going on there. You can see it on the camera. I've not quite got up to the rim yet. I'm not worried about that at this stage. But having done the rough shaping, I can modify the cut slightly now and refine that with a more of a shearing cut. There's two ways of attacking this. One is you drop the handle and put the gouge against the wood and take more of a shear cut, or bring the gouge round the other way and do a push cut. So you're cutting on the tip of the tool, but cutting at a steeper angle. So you get that shear cut effect, but with bevel contact. So either would work. I'll do the shear cut here because that means I don't have to sort of move things around. So I'm just trying to take a light cut with the handle drop down, and a slicing cut is what the essence of the shear cut is. I still do the shear cut with the flute quite open. I know some people turn the flute facing into the wood more like that. And I mean, the reason I don't like doing that is because I want to see where I'm cutting. So I just leave the flute a bit more open. But not to say that either's right or wrong. It's just my way of doing it. I'm just moving my rest in nearer that corner. So at this point, I'll trim that top part. And here I'm using the bevel on the wood. I'm taking a bit of a slicing cut just to shape the top part of the bowl there. I'm just going to stop the lathe and have a look and see that I've cut all of, there's still a little bit of a flat on the edge, so I need to take a little bit more off. It's splintering the edge because I'm pushing the tool off the wood, but I'm going to clean up that face when I do the other side anyway, so I'm not too concerned about that. If it did matter, I could always come in from the other side. So I can cut up to that point there and then come in from the headstock end. So I'm cutting into the wood rather than off it, so I'm not splintering a corner. So if that corner matters, do it this way. I mean, there's this sort of rule about cutting from center to edge on the outside of a bowl because it's cross grain, and that way you're cutting with the grain. But on this top section here, because at that point you're almost 90 degrees to the grain anyway, it doesn't make a huge amount of difference whether you're cutting left to right or right to left, because you're still almost 90 degrees to the grain. So either way you're getting a reasonably clean cut, because you're cutting at 90 degrees to the grain in either direction, and it makes very little difference. So that's cleaned up the corner. You see most of that splintering is gone now because I've cut the other way. Just a little bit of tear here, so I can sort of finish off cleaning the rest of that with shear scrape. Figured wood is notorious for getting torn grain because you've got grain going in all sorts of different directions. So there's no perfect way to cut it. So I think sometimes with a figured wood, it's a case of seeing which direction of cut gives you the cleanest finish. And sometimes it's a case of doing what works rather than what the textbooks say you should do. So be prepared to adapt as you go. So that should be there. So that's cleaned it up to the point where I can sand that. Shape-wise, happy with that. It's pretty sort of uniform curve. A good tip on shaping and testing shapes. I've got a super expensive tool for checking the shapes on my curve, and it's this. It's a hot melt glue stick, 12-inch hot melt glue stick. And that's my shape checker. What I do is I put the bottom of the glue stick there against the bowl and then bend it around the curve, and I'm looking between the glue stick and the wood. And if I can see light at any point, that's showing me that I've got highs and lows. If there's no gaps, then I know I've got a smooth curve. So it's a very quick and easy way to test that curve. And a tip I picked up many years ago, and it's certainly done me good in improving the shapes of my bowls. Because you can sort of look at a curve and think, yeah, that looks right, and you run your finger around it and think, yes, it feels right. But that takes it a stage further, you can actually pick up some very small discrepancies in this shape that you probably can't see and you probably can't feel. So it just takes it that little bit further in getting the shape as smooth and as sort of continuous as possible. So yeah, and as Dane says, fuel tubing, all you want is something flexible. You can, if you've got a really thin flexible steel, that will work too, but the tighter that curve is, obviously the more your chosen sort of flexible whatever it is has got to bend, and the glue sticks are very, very pliable and work quite well. But yeah, that's what I use. So I'm just going to sand the outside of this, starting off on probably 180 grit. See where we're at. Yeah, I think I can probably go with 180 grit there. I'm just going to fire up the extractor. So I'll move my tool rest away from the point where I was cutting, so I got no risk of getting my finger caught between the piece of wood and the rest. And I'm just going to drop the speed down a little bit as well. At the sanding stage, I don't want to generate too much heat. Some woods are sensitive to heat and they'll start to check on the surface if you overheat them. So just dropping that speed down a bit so I'm not going to overheat it and cause myself problems. Where I start with the abrasive, it depends on the wood, how good a cut I've got, and to some extent which way the wind's blowing, because it does vary a bit. But what I'm trying to achieve with whatever I decide is the first grit is to remove all the little bumps and ridges, tool marks, torn grain, anything else I don't want in the final surface. So if that first grit doesn't achieve all of that, there's no point going finer. I've got to go the other way. I've got to go coarser and come at it from the other end, really, and see where it goes. So that's sanded to 180 grit. You can see that figure in the surface. Where the dark section of the wood is just there, there's very little of it left, so that works quite well for what I'm doing. And there's just a little bit there where it's slightly darker, but that should work okay. I'm just going to turn the extractor off now. So I sanded that to 180. Depending on how many colors I've got here, I build it up. I'll sand to a certain point, put on the first color, then sand the next grit, and then put on the next color, and then sand to the next grit and put on the next color. So I'm sort of deciding at this point how many colors I'm going to put on and how fine I'm going to sand it. So I sanded to 180. I'll sand one more grit at this stage to 240. Then I'll put the first color on, and then I'll sand to 320. I might do a bit of 240 first and then 320, but to sand it away a bit quicker. But that's what I think I'll do. And then once I've sanded to 320, I'll put the potentially put the second color on. So one more at this point. So down to 240 grit. So I should have left my extractor running. If I'm doing more colors, I might sand to 120 and then 180 and then put the first color on and so on. But here I'll go to 240 and then put the first color on. What you're trying to do is sand down through the grits and apply colors at each stage, because as you sand the surface of the wood finer, the absorbency of it changes, and that's influenced by the figure as well. So you get selective shading and selective coloring, and that's what makes this technique work. So sanded that surface to 240 grit now. And I think that bit of 240 grit's seen better days, so I'll get rid of it and get a fresh piece for the next time. So that's sanded to 240, and there's some nice figure there. So that's where I want to be. Right, so colours. What I want to do now is to put the first colour on here. I've combined various colours, but what I would generally say is you start with the darkest colour and then work up through the lighter colours, and you can use obviously the darker colors are going to have a shading effect on what you put on beyond. Whereas if you do the lighter colors first and then the darker, it doesn't quite come out the same. To some extent, you can experiment with this and improvise, but that's the way I normally do it. And in terms of shading colors, sometimes the first color will be black, and it's doing exactly that. It's just shading. That's all it's doing, nothing more. I'm just putting some of these nitrile gloves on so I don't end up with spirit dye all over my hands, because if you've ever used it, you'll know what I mean. It takes a few days to wash it out if you get it on your hands. So I'm going to use a airbrush to apply the color. I was debating on whether just doing it with a pad, but in the end I thought, no, I'll use an airbrush. That's what I normally do. So I've got my airbrush set up. Here I'm going to use one of these airbrushes. Cheap and cheerful. These cost probably equivalent of $10. So they're not expensive. It's what they call a single action airbrush. You've got a button there and it's on or off. No more control than that, other than here on the nozzle there's a preset. So I can preset the amount of flow through the nozzle to introduce sort of control how much paint or dye is being applied. I've adapted this with a bayonet fit in here, so I can bayonet fit the airline on from the compressor to quickly change airbrushes, because what I do when I'm working with multiple colors, I have one of these with each color bottle attached, and these have a bottle mounted underneath. Let me just grab one and I'll show you. So it's like that. So that will just push onto the gun there like that. So we've got what they call siphon feed. So the liquid is held beneath the gun and it's siphoned up through the nozzle here into the airflow. Works well with spirit dyes, and the reason I like these for doing this particular type of work with spirit dyes is I have one bottle with each color. So all I do is swap bottles, or I just swap the whole thing, swap the whole gun. So I've got a few of these and plenty of these bottles. I've got one bottle with each color, so I can just set up each gun with a color. So on this one, I'm going to go for a purple as my first color. It's a nice dark color. Sometimes I go for a dark blue, like a royal blue. The colors I'm using are the chestnut spirit stains, by the way. But there are obviously multiple brands out there that you could do this type of work with. So there's my gun set up with the color. The reason for the gloves is in the top of these caps, there's a little air hole. So as the liquid comes out, the air is sort of replacing it, so you don't end up with an airlock in there, which will stop the flow. So and as I'm using this, I tend to move them around quite vigorously and get a bit carried away, and some of the liquid might well come out of that little hole, and that's how I get it on my finger. So that's why I'm wearing the gloves, just to make sure I don't end up with it all over my fingers. Right, so get my airline set up. I've got a compressor set up to about sort of between 30 and 40 psi is where I normally set it for this. Airline connected, and what I can do before kicking off with that is just do a quick test. So I've got a little bit of kitchen towel here, and I'm just going to switch to the other camera there, so slightly easier to see what I'm doing. So I just got a bit of tissue. Sometimes I use just an old bit of cardboard as a target board, and all I'm doing is spraying a little bit of color on there just to see how much flow I'm getting, and if I think I need more or less, I can adjust it. These are fairly cheap and cheerful guns, but if you come in closer, you can take a sort of a thinner line like that, and farther away I'm getting a thicker line. So you've got a little bit of control there, and you can preset that nozzle. You can actually adjust the nozzle on the fly, but it's a bit of a fiddle to do, and probably not really the way they're designed to work, but you can do that. So I'm dropping the speed down. If you're worried about keeping your lane in pristine condition, then put some plastic sheet or something over your headstock so you don't get too much color on it. All I'm going to do is aim at the back of the piece of wood, so most of the overspray is going to go past the headstock rather than on it, but I am going to get a little bit of overspray probably. I find that over time, my chucks and screw chucks and various things tend to change color because I'm doing things like this, but it doesn't matter too much. Every now and again, I'll just rub them clean with a wire brush to get it all off. So I'm giving that quite a good coating. Put plenty on, let it soak in. So I'm sort of almost saturating the surface. That should do it on the purple. Got to give that a minute to dry so I can still see the figure working through the color there. Being a dye, this is effectively transparent. So I'm maintaining the character of the wood and the figure coming through there. So I'm just going to give that a minute to dry. I'll just leave that running. When I clean these guns out, what I do is swap the bottle for one that's just got methylated spirits in. I think you call it denatured alcohol, don't you? Over here we call it methylated spirit, but it's basically methanol and water, isn't it? So that's what's in here. It doesn't look clear because I've used it a few times and it very quickly gets contaminated. So that's got a bit of colour in it, but it doesn't matter. It's just effectively it's just a wash to blow the gun through. And with these guns, that's all I need to do. I don't need to strip them down and take the whole thing apart and clean it too fastidiously. I'll just blow this through, dry it off, and it's good to go. Being a dye, there's very little in the way of solids in this, so it doesn't actually have too much of an issue with the gun getting clogged. Different kettle of fish with acrylic paints. I'll use acrylic J paints to airbrush as well with a different type of airbrush. I'll use a gravity feed airbrush for the acrylic paints and a dual action one. And with those, you've got to clean them a lot better because once the acrylic dries, it's a pain to clean them up and to strip them down and clean it. It's a bit of a faff. So with those, I do clean them sort of much more rigorously than these. A little bit longer to dry on that.
Paul, on the jars, can you keep your dye in the jar and use it as a storage container?
Yeah, I've got just a plastic box that I put them all in. But what I do when I'm storing them, well, let me just bring this one back. You see this one here? It's just got a solid cap rather than one with the nozzle.
Yep.
So when I'm storing them, I just put the solid caps on, and that stops evaporation. Yep. When they're in use, I'll change that for the cap with the nozzle on it.
Right.
When I bought these guns, they had a special offer on. They sell these bottles with the nozzles on, and all I do is swap it over. I put that onto the bottle with the colour. So that's how I apply it and use it on there. But yeah, they're only on for as long as I'm using the colours. Once I've done and I pack it all away, then I'll just put the solid caps on. So I've no risk of it spilling or evaporation. So that stores pretty good. Okay, so that's pretty much dry. So I'll go with that. I'll keep these gloves on. It's probably not the easiest thing to do with the sanding, but I'll keep them on anyway because I'm going to put another colour on in a sec. So I sanded that to 240 grit. Now what I want to do is sand some of that colour away. So I'm going to go back up to turning speed. Back there. Put the extractor back on, and this time I'm dropping now to 320 grit. So I'll start sanding with the 320 grit. Now we'll see how much of this colour is removed by the 320. If I don't get enough of it off, I might just drop back to 240 initially and then back to 320. You can see this paper's clogging pretty quick. So not too big a deal. I'll use it until it's sort of past its best, and then I'll switch to a fresher piece. So initially it looks a bit sort of rough and ready, bit streaky. If I turn it off at this stage, you'll probably see it looks a little bit streaky. But already you can see at this point, there's a bit of the lighter wood showing through and a little bit of shading still. And here's a little bit more purple. There's a little bit too much purple on the surface there still. So a little bit more sanding to be done here. And I'm just going to get right in there by the foot. Yeah, I wouldn't normally wear any sort of glove when I'm turning, but I know these will just tear if I actually did get them caught on anything. So that's the only time I would ever wear gloves. So that's a bit better. I think it still needs a little bit more here, but I'm just going to sort of selectively hit the points where I think I need to take a bit more off. Okay, that'll work. So there's some color there. I've taken probably 3/4 or more of that color off, but where it's sitting is in the figure. So it's sort of highlighting the figure. So having done that, I can switch to another color. And as I said earlier, what I want to do is get lighter in color. So I'm going to go for a light blue, what Chestnut call a light blue. I would call it more of a turquoise, I think is my description of it. So again, I'm just putting a cap on the bottle, so I've got the appropriate bit there to attach to the airbrush. This is a second airbrush, so I can have one of these with each color, and if I want to use them again, I've already got them set up. And sometimes when I get sort of playing with the colors and doing this sort of thing, or coloring other pieces, I've got a few airbrushes all lined up, each one with a different color in, so I'm just switching them over on the gun using these bayonet fittings, so they're quite quick and easy. So that's it, that's ready to go. So same as before, I'm just going to do a quick blast here with my test. That's looking okay, go with that. And on this one, I am just going to apply the two colors. So I'll drop the speed down a bit and apply some color here. Now this one you can put as much or as little as you want on, depending on the effect you're after. If I stop there, you can see we've now got a fairly light turquoise with a little bit of shading from the purple, and the purple still sort of showing through. So I think it's giving it quite a nice effect. I'm just going to put a little bit more turquoise on. I could even overspray that with darker colors and have a little bit of more conventional shading, if you want to call it that. I mean, that's a bit more turquoise, so it's darkened it just a little, but you can still see the interaction between the purple and the blue there. So it's picked up the figure and highlighted it.
That's looking great.
You see that?
Oh yeah.
So that sanded it to 320, didn't I? So I could go a stage further, sand that to 400, and just lightly take that back, and either put a little bit more of that color on, or even another color. So each time you apply a color, you sand it to the next grit, and so on. So depending on how many colors you want, you just sort of figure out where you want at each stage, and go with that. So I'm just going to lightly sand that with 400. I might just top it up with purple after, top it up with the light blue again after I've done this, because it is going to cut some of that surface back. So it depends on exactly what you want as to how much, and really I need to leave that to dry a bit more. I would normally leave these for quite some time to make sure it's fully dry, but here I'm just trying to rush that slightly so we can do the whole thing while we're here. So I've taken off some of that color so we can see how it looks. I think that still looks okay as it is, but I might still put a little bit more color on. But I just want to sand it to the 400 grit as a final stage with this. What I was saying about selective shading in a more conventional way, let me just put a little bit more of this turquoise on. That'll do. What I could do is apply, for example, a darker blue at the top and bottom just to shade it in and almost to frame it. So there's all sorts of things you can do here to play with shading it in different ways. In fact, let's just do it. Why not? So I'm just going to get a third gun, turn my extractor off, and this time I'm going to be much more selective about where I apply the color. Up until now, it's all been full on sort of putting total coverage, total saturation of the surface, if you like. Here, I want to be a little bit more selective. So I just want to grab another one of these bottles with a nozzle. So I've got a third one on my gun here. So, that's it. So I've got the third gun set up with a dark blue, a royal blue, I think was what Chestnut call it. The other blue, Chestnut just calls blue, the one I call turquoise. Chestnut calls it just blue. And this one they call royal blue. It's much darker. I'll show you on here. Fire the blue on that. And that's actually where I want it. It's spraying a lot less. So I've got to work on it a bit longer to get a decent coverage, which is what I want here. I want to be a little bit more selective about the application. So I'm actually winding this nozzle down a bit to reduce the paint flow or the dye flow, as is the case, because I want to build it up slowly. I don't want to put too much on too quick. So I'm not trying to get saturation here, just a little bit of selective shading, sort of nearer the edges. That's a bit too much. About there is probably not enough, so somewhere between the two. Yeah, we go about there. That should work. Okay, so all I'm going to do is shade the edges. I don't normally do this, but I'm always up for experimenting. So right on the inner edge, near the foot, I'll start off where the spigot is, because that's all going to get turned away. So I'll start there and just bring the gun out. And I'm just concentrating on that bottom corner and building up some of this darker blue near that bottom edge. And I'll do the same on the top corner. Slowly build up some blue on that top edge. I mean, I'm not seeing much of a change, and you'll probably see even less of a change on the camera because it's not picking up the colours as well as my eyes do. And even I'm not seeing that much of a change at this point. Just stop and have a look. So it's very subtle. Yeah, there's not a lot happening there. So I'm just going to open that nozzle up just a little bit more. That's probably too much. Bit too much still. Right, that'll do. We'll go with that again. So I'll give it another blast near that top edge. So that has changed it. A little bit more flow down, a little bit right down the bottom. So I've just shaded it right on the edges. It's quite subtle, but it is visible. I'm going to put a little bit more on the top edge. I think it's just a bit too subtle. So a little bit heavier there. So that's sort of shaded the top edge a little bit darker. We'll go with that. Yeah, happy with that. Right, so that's the final application of colour. As I said, I'm sanding that now to 400 grit. So I can stop there. So my next application here is to seal that. I'm going to use a spray on, again, Chestnut gloss lacquer. You use whatever brand of lacquer you prefer. This acrylic lacquer works quite well. It could be a cellulose rather than acrylic. I think either will work with these alcohol-based dyes. But I think when you're putting colours on like this, what you want to do is to build up a depth of shine So you want a surface that gives you a deep shine because that really gives depth to the color. I'm just giving this can a good shake. Fortunately, because I've been in my workshop all day, it's quite warm in here. It might be too cold otherwise in here, but I've been in here with 4 days going, 4 people in here and me, and heater going as well for most of the day because it is colder here at this time of year. So my workshop's still quite warm. So I'm just putting like a few light coats on. Give that a minute to dry between each blast, and then applying some more. This is fairly fast drying the acrylic lacquer, and I'm putting enough on so it's giving it a sort of almost a wet look on the surface. Not so much that it's running, but you want to put on enough so it looks wet. And then that'll dry. I'm trying to sort of accelerate this and speed up the process a bit. Normally I'd wait longer between coats, but that's the thing with painting and demos. You've got to try and boost the sort of throughput slightly. So I'll leave it at that at this stage. I might put more on later when that's fully dry. And I, with my sort of gloss finishes like this, to get that color, give that color depth, I'll put on several coats of lacquer. I'll show you another one that this is one I did in a demo recently, and it's the same process I've just done, and it was a little bit rushed, so it's not perfect, but as a demo piece, it's not bad. And you can see there, we've got a similar process. It was shaded with purple with that same light blue on top, and where you got the figuring in the wood, it's sort of highlighting that a bit. And that was done with gloss lacquer as well. I put quite a few coats on that. It still needs sort of a final sort of cut back and probably another coat on top of that, and then burnish to get the full sort of gloss effect. But you can see what I'm saying about that's got a bit of depth to the color now because the gloss lacquer is picking that up. But yeah, it needs a little bit more work to finish it, but it's not far off now. So that was a demo piece a little while ago. But yeah, over here you can see the purple shading, which I think is sort of, it just highlights the figure and works with the character of the wood, and I think it's quite a nice effect. So I mean, Master Birch takes this sort of to the next level in a way because of the figuring in the wood is so intense. So it works really nicely with that. But the hollow forms I showed, like the one I showed you earlier, I used to make them in batches, do a half a dozen or so at a time. And what I would do is split, once I've turned the outside and at the stage where I'm putting the colour on, I would split them up into twos. I'll do 2 one colour, 2 another colour, 2 another colour, and then let that dry, sand it back, and at the next stage, mix them up. And again, do 3 colours, 2 of each, and then if I put a third colour on again, mix them up. And so I'd end up with 6 that have got different combinations of colour. Some I liked and some I didn't, but oddly enough, usually the ones I didn't like were the ones that sold first. So, so it says a lot about my sort of colour sense, I think. But yeah, I mean, it's a quite an interesting thing to experiment with. So that's I'm just going to give that a minute to dry. So now it's probably a good time to ask questions. So if anyone's got any questions, if you want to fire away.
Paul, could you use a hairdryer to speed up, or a heat gun to speed up the drying?
Yeah, you could. Yeah, that's a good idea. A little bit of heat. Good way to speed that process up. I can take my gloves off now.
There you go.
So
anybody
yeah,
else
you're
have
right,
any
Dane.
questions?
Yeah, I've got a hot air paint stripper in my workshop, and as long as I hold that a good distance away, that would work as well.
I use a hairdryer on some
hair dryer
my
and that sort of thing would be good if you want to accelerate it. I mean that should be touch dry in a couple of minutes, so I can leave it for that long, just get it to the point where it's touch dry, and just be careful with it, and then I can.
How durable is that lacquer you're using? That acrylic lacquer?
What? Sorry.
How durable is it? the acrylic lacquer.
I would say quite a durable finish. It's acrylic based, and when it's cured, effectively that's a coat of plastic, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I would say it is fairly durable. Yeah. Well, most of the acrylic paints are. I mean, if you've got time and want to see more, I've got another piece of wood lined up we can put on and do another one.
Yeah, let's do that.
I won't bother turning the inside of this, but what I sometimes do is I'll do the outside of the piece of wood one color. I'm just trying to take this off without actually touching the bit that matters. Let me go back to my camera over here. So I'm just taking this one off the screw chuck and doing it without touching the bit I've just lacquered. So I can take that off and let it dry somewhere.
Set it on the
And I'll
spigot.
throw another piece of wood on. But before I put that one away, just have a look at that.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Very
The
pretty.
dye just goes so far to coaxing all that character out of that wood.
Yeah, it looks a bit like ash, but I'm not 100% sure. It is and it isn't.
Paul, can you buff that with wax or not?
Yes, you could. Yeah, I mean, once this is fully hardened, I'd leave it 24 hours at least to let that lacquer fully cure. And really, I think this is still looking a little bit. Perhaps orange peel is the wrong word, but I've still not saturated the pores of the wood, so it's still looking a little bit open. So I would probably let that dry, quick sanding back to cut back the surface, and then apply another coat of lacquer and keep going until I've got a nice uniform gloss. And at that point, then think about buffing. But yeah, absolutely, you can buff that once it's fully cured. I wouldn't do it too quick because I found out to my cost once that I tried to rush it and the surface it dragged slightly, the lacquer, and messed it up. So I had to sand it all off and start again. So that was a bit of an interesting one. But yeah, normally I would sand it back to flat and then burnish it or buff it. Sometimes you use a burnishing compound like a cutting compound that you might use on car paints and things like that. So I've got another piece of wood here, a little bit bigger this time, but also got some nice figure in it. This is horse chestnut.
Oh yeah.
And there's some figure going on in this. It's ordinarily quite a bland wood because it's almost just pure white, but when you've got some nice figuring in it, it is nice stuff to work with. Nice soft wood, easy to turn. I say easy to turn, but where you've got that sort of enhanced figure going on, you've got this problem with grain direction and all that, so it can be quite a difficult wood to turn because of that, because you're getting tear out by the nature of the grain going all over the place. So that can make it a bit of a challenging wood to turn, but worth persevering with, I would say. Right, so I've got that second piece on. I'm going to do the same as before, flatten off that front face, lathe speed set to minimum, wind this up to a decent turning speed. This is a big amount, this is about 8 inches, so I'm running at sort of 800, 850, that sort of area. Let's go back to dual view. So again, just flatten off the face. So I'm just using the pull cut to flatten off the surface. You can do this either pull cut or the push cut. If you want to do the push cut, I'm just going to adjust this front camera slightly so you can see the outer edge. And then I just want to get the camera right to the edge there. That's better. Push cut, I'll position the gouge so the bevel's pointing straight across the piece of wood, handle down a bit, flute pointing forwards in the direction I'm going, and just come on the edge like that. Coming on the edge and cut forward. So that's as effective as the pull cut. Depending on the piece of wood, you might find one more effective than the other in terms of how clean it leaves the surface. And I can keep that push cut going all the way to the center. And then flatten that off, and I just check I've actually cut that flat. So I'm looking to see that all the saw marks have gone. They haven't actually. There's still an area which is uncut. But all I'm worried about really is the center section where I want to put the spigot. The rest doesn't matter too much. So I'm not overly concerned that I haven't flattened all of it, as long as the bit in the middle is. So I can mark my spigot as before, left point on the rest, the right point just floating in the air, and then adjust till I've got the spacing right about there. Again, about a 4mm depth of spigot, which is about 3/16. I can check that with my depth gauge as well if I want. Go deeper than that. That's more like it. Yeah, we'll go with that. So again, pointing the bevel straight down the direction of the bed. So I've got the bevel parallel to the bed. Just cutting a straight spigot. When I get to the bottom of that cut, if I keep the flute open, what I'll do is leave an actual slight curve right in the corner. And I don't want that because that's going to interfere with the jaws. So when I get almost to the bottom, I rotate the gouge so that I close the flute, so the flute's now vertical. And that way the tip of the tool gets right to the bottom of that cut. And I get a 90-degree corner, sharp corner at the bottom. So that makes sure that my jaws are going to seat right into that corner. Once I've done that straight cut, bring the handle of the gauge left slightly, so I'm steering the bevel inwards, and then I can start the cut just a little bit in from the corner. If you try and pick this up right on the corner and dovetail it all the way to the corner, what usually happens is the gauge kicks one way or another and you mess up the edge. Just start a millimetre or two or a 16th or so to the left of that corner, so you're on that flat face that you've just cut, and the gauge doesn't kick. The fact that you haven't taken the dovetail right to the corner isn't any problem, and it might actually be a benefit, because if you do take the dovetail all the way to the corner, you've got a weak corner. So this gets around that problem, and you've dovetailed it all except the last 16th or so. So there's my dovetail sorted. Now, whether I need it or not, I'll bring my tailstock in here and just wind that in. Now, it's there for support if you want a sort of belt and braces and a bit of extra security. But what I'm primarily doing that for is to mark the center of the spigot. So when I reverse chuck this piece at the final stage to turn the spigot away and flatten the foot and all that, I'll use that center mark to remount this and get it centered correctly. So that's why I'm doing it. But having got it there, if it's not in my way, I can leave it there. It's not costing me anything to leave it there. So you can see I didn't center that blanket before cutting. I never do normally. If it's balanced enough to actually turn it at the speed I want, I don't bother, because all I'm going to do is cut that surface away. So what's the point of truing up what's going to become wastewood? So I'll just go straight in with a gouge and shape it. And that's doing it for me. I'm getting rid of that uneven edge as I shape it. So there's no point putting the rest on the outside just for the purposes of turning it around and truing it up. The only time I will do that is if I've got a blank that's so far out of balance, I've got to run it slow, because it's just unstable otherwise. So there, I might true up the edge just to true up the blank and get it better balanced. I mean, I do work with some large blanks at times and make some big-ish bowls that are like natural edge ones and things like that, and they start off well out of balance, so you've got to try and do what you can until you've got it better balanced and then bring the speed up. So again, I'm going to put a little curve at the bottom to define a foot and take a little bit more of this surface away. I don't know how good a piece of wood this is going to turn out to be. There was evidence of some wormholes in it on the surface. Oh yeah, there's quite a lot in it. So this is not going to be a finished piece, but you can see here we've got like worm tracks going all over the place and holes here and there. So this isn't going to be a finished one. This is going to go in the firewood pile when I finish this, but it'll work for the purposes of the demo. So we'll carry on. So I'm dropping the handle, doing that shearing cut to clean the surface up. I find the shearing cut sort of quite effective on the bottom 2/3. The top edge where it's into the end grain section, I'll probably just bring the gouge round here and do a push cut like that. So I'm on the bevel now doing a push cut. But if I lift the handle of the tool a little higher than I would normally, I'm still getting that slicing action on the tip of the tool. So I'm almost getting the same effect of a shearing cut, but with the added benefit of bevel contact, which should give me a cleaner cut and a cleaner surface. Because a lot of these figured woods, if you've got bevel contact right behind the cutting edge, it actually gives you a cleaner cut. And I'm seeing a clean cut up here compared to what's down farther down. There's a little bit more tear out down here where I was doing the rougher cut. So I need to do a little bit more with a shear cut. Now that gouge, I've used it for a bit. So I'm going to switch to a freshly sharpened one to continue. So when I'm doing these last finishing cuts, I can do it with a freshly sharpened gouge. One issue I find with some of the, here I've got one of the robust rests. It's quite wide. And if you're doing a shearing cut where you want the handle quite low, it's difficult to do with a wide rest because you can't get the, excuse me, it's difficult to do to get the handle low enough because it starts to pivot on the back corner of the rest here instead of the top of the rest where it's supposed to. So what I do to get around that problem is just to raise the rest above center. So it's not the norm where you'd normally be working, but by raising the rest, I can put the tool on the rest at a shallower angle, so I'm keeping well clear of the bottom of the rest here. Like you see, I've got my finger underneath it, and that's plenty of room there. But I'm at the right angle for doing a shearing cut with the handle raised slightly. So I'm just adapting the circumstances to, or the situation to the circumstances. So I'm getting that shearing cut on the edge. And hopefully clean up enough of this surface. Okay, you see that's loads of wormholes there. I don't know if there's any live occupants, but they've certainly been busy in there at some point. So yeah, I'm not going to have this as a finished piece, but it's fine for doing what we're doing here and a bit of experimenting. Still a little bit of tear there. So what I'm going to try instead of that shear cut is what I was saying earlier about doing a push cut with bevel contact. So I'll bring my rest back down to normal working height, set it up just below center. So I'm cutting sort of on center, and I'm now bringing the gouge over here. Let's switch these cameras around that way. So I've got my gouge over here. With the tailstock out of the way, I can now get my gouge where I want it. So I'm coming on the edge of the foot there. Keep the bevel in contact. That just isn't cutting where it's supposed to be there. I'm not sure. I think I've got a dull edge on that gouge actually. Yeah, I'm just going to switch to yet another gouge. It feels sharp, but it's just not cutting the way it's supposed to. Just grab another one. So, gouge number 3. That's better. That's cutting. So I got the handle quite high, which means the tip of the tool where it's cutting is slicing across the wood. I've got the edge at about an 80-degree angle. I'm just trying to stand back a bit so I'm not blocking the view from the camera. But I'm doing a sort of a slicing cut on the tip of the tool, swinging that gauge left and following the curve round. I'll just stop there. We'll have a look. So that's a much cleaner cut compared to the piece of wood I've left behind. So that's giving me a sandable finish, definitely. So I can continue the cut from there. And keep swinging that handle left as I come around the curve. The top section doesn't really need a lot, so I'm just allowing that cut to feather out. And I'll get that up almost to the top. I think that wants a little bit more off at the top. I'm just looking at the profile and the shape, and now just sort of fixing the shape. So that's a much cleaner finish. And yeah, that's sandable from there. There's no torn grain there. It's sliced it cleanly, cut it cleanly. So yeah, sometimes you play around with different cuts until you get one that works, which is what I've done here. That cut, because I had bevel contact and a slicing cut on the edge, so almost a shear cut on the edge, but with bevel, that's left a cleaner surface than just the shear cut on its own in a shear scraping fashion. So that's left a better surface. So we'll start off with 180 grit again. And sand this. Oh, got 150 there. Now on this one, I'm just going to sand 180 and then apply colour. So I'm just sanding that enough to sort of smooth out any little bumps and ridges that I might have left off the tool. If this was going to be a finished piece, I'll give it a little bit more, but that's going to work for what we're doing here. Right, so I need yet another pot. This one I'm just going to take the shading to sort of down to the basics. So I'm going to shade it with black. So there's a bit of figure going on there. It's not as intense as the other piece, actually. I can see the figure, but it's a bit more subtle. So the shading might be a bit more subtle too with this one. But I'll do black, and we'll see where we go. So I've got my pot of black there. One more gun. I'm just going to steal the gun out of the purple here. Put my gloves on first. I'll usually remember to put the gloves on after I've covered my fingers with one colour or another, and then wear it for a few days until it wears off.
Yeah, I've never done that before.
No. It's durable stuff though, isn't it? You can't just wash it off. After a few days, each time you wash it gets a little bit more off, but yeah, it does take a few days to get rid of it.
I find I can get quite a bit off of it with a quick wipe with the denatured alcohol. So
yeah, you can try and use that as a solvent to lift off more of the color. Yeah, definitely.
If I get it on my fingernails or something, it comes off pretty easily with acetone or denatured alcohol. Hey, Paul, we got a question in chat about what brand of airbrush you're using.
It literally says on it airbrush.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm
and
not entirely sure.
Is it a siphon feed? Is it coming in from the bottom with the?
These are siphon feed. I can probably find a link if you wait till I've finished this. I'll just go and check out the website where I bought them, see if they've still got them, so I can put a link in the chat to where I got them, and hopefully that will give you a bit more info. I'm not entirely sure of the brand, but they
That
are
sounds great, Paul.
the absolutely cheapest ones you can probably find. As I
Yeah,
said,
I know I know
I
that
put a
Harbor
link in the chat there, Matt, for
Okay.
something that looks very similar, and it is literally the cheapest one you can find.
Yeah, and I know
Yeah.
that Harbor Freight sells these too. So and they work pretty good. So yep. Okay, thanks guys.
Okay. But yeah, when I've finished and sat in front of my laptop again, I'll see what I can find. So I'm just gonna do a test spray on the black. This gun was the one I was using on the purple. I've not even washed it out. I just put it on the black, and literally the first second it was purple. Now it's coming out black. So that's enough to blow it through. If I'm going from a light color to a darker, I don't worry too much about cross contamination. But I wouldn't now take this gun and put it back into any other colors, because you're going to contaminate them with black, and that is going to affect them. So just be a bit sort of selective about which ones you mix in that sense. And there's a little bit of dye coming out of that hole in the top because I shook it when I shouldn't have done. So I'm just going to wipe that off. Right, so shade this with black. So I'm going to hit it with a black, give it a good coat. That should do it. So while that's drying, I'm just going to clean one of these. Oh, actually, no, I've got a spare gun. I don't need to worry about that. I've got one more airbrush that I haven't used, which I've saved. I'm going to do a second color, which is quite a strong color. So I'm going to do an orange. So I'm going to do black and orange, so sort of tiger stripe fashion. So we'll see how that comes out. Find my pot of orange. I've got a yellow and an orange. Make sure I get the right one. I think it's that one. Yeah, chestnut do sell an orange, but I actually mix my own. This is a sort of some red and some yellow. So it might not be quite the same as the chestnut orange, but it works for me. I think I just experimented until I got a shade that I thought looked okay. I've got to sand it back before I use the orange, but I'm just setting the gun up while I'm waiting for that black to dry before I can sand it. So that's ready to go. So we can sand it now. I'm going to go back to, I've sanded to 180 initially, so I'm going to go to 240. Find a 240 here. I had one earlier. Oh yeah, I threw it away, didn't I? Because it's worn out. I've got some more. Oh, there's one. Right, so bring that speed back up a bit. But I'm still running it slower than the speed I was turning out. I'll knock about a third off when I sand. So if I turned it at 1,000, I'll sand it about 700, 750. And again, this is not fully dry, so it's clogging the paper initially, but that's fine. I'll just use it to effectively dry the surface as I go. Flip it over, use the other side. And sometimes when you've done that initial sanding, I'll just stop that and you can see what I mean. There's sort of lines and bands. So I've got to take that back a little bit farther to get rid of those lines. So I can concentrate where the lines are to even out the sanding. It may be there's just a little bit more color applied at that point. It may be just the way it's sanding, the way it's working. So stand a bit more of this back. Now that bit of abrasive I think is also spent, so I'll just get another one. Here we go with this one. I've got a dark line right near the bottom, and that's being a bit persistent. I might just leave that. I could keep going until I got rid of it, but as this is just going to be a test piece for the demo, I'm not overly concerned. But stop and have a look. So it's a little bit more uniform. There's a couple of points where I might need to selectively sand to get rid of the remnants of those lines. There is a line around the rim. What that line around the rim is, possibly I didn't sand it well enough at that point, so the grain was a little bit more open and it's absorbed a little bit more color. So if you don't sand it uniformly, that's what can happen. So it's possibly that, but I'm just trying to cut this back, and at the top here you see there's a line that I also need to sand away if I'm doing this properly. I'm not going to worry too much about that. I'll leave that, but I'll just sand down here a bit. So I'm getting a little bit of shading going on with the figure. I've taken probably 90% of the color off there, but there is a little bit of shading happening with the figure. So that's the black done at 240. So now I can go on to the orange at the next stage and then sand that one at 320 if I sand it at all, or I could just leave it with no further sanding. So if you're using a couple of colors, you've got to almost think backwards. You start off with where you're going to sand to and then work backwards from there. So I'll apply some of the orange there. And that's quite an intense orange. I like that color.
Paul, would it be a benefit to sand in reverse if you're able to? If the person was
Sorry,
able to.
say that again, Dane?
If you could sand in reverse, would it be a benefit to sand in reverse?
Possibly, yeah. Sometimes that pays off. I mean, here, my screw chuck, it's got no locking screw, so I would be a bit cautious about trying to use that in reverse because it might unscrew. But I've got some chucks with the locking, the grub screw on the back of the chuck, so I can actually lock that to the spindle and run it backwards. So yeah, sometimes sanding in reverse can be helpful. So that's down here. You can get quite a good impression. I'll see if I can just zoom in there just a little. So around here, we got some nice shading going on. You can see it's picked up the wormholes quite nicely, which is not what you want to do, is it? You don't want to enhance things like that. And here, nearer the top edge, so let me just move the camera up, just the whisker there. Up here, we're seeing some nice shading effects. So that's a successful bit on the shading, but as I said, it's not a nice piece of wood with all the wormholes on that, so this is just going to go on the firewood pile, but it served its purpose to show us the shading. If I was going to finish this, then I could either leave that as it is and lacquer it, or sand it a little bit more and then apply the lacquer after that. So you can go either way with it. If you decide that colour's too wrong, too strong, you can always sand a bit of it back and lighten it that way. So you've got still got scope to experiment with that and change it to what you want. But had that been a nice piece of figured wood, and I'd paid a little bit more attention on the sanding and got rid of some of these rings that are still there that I haven't quite got out, yeah, that could have worked quite nicely. But yeah, it's a dodgy bit of wood with some wormholes in it, so it's not going to be a finished piece. But hopefully that's demonstrated the process and the technique. So come back over here. So any questions?
Floor is open, folks. If you have a question, now's your chance to ask Paul on it. I know he was pretty thorough.
Absolutely great.
That
I
was
don't
a
have any questions. I just, hey, thanks a lot, Paul. I mean, that's a lot of inspiration. I'm always thinking about, okay, I could turn the piece, but how could I enhance it?
Yeah. This other piece I did earlier is I'll put it over the lathe again. The cameras, the lighting's better over here, so I'll just bring this over here. I'll show you this one. But yeah, keep talking. Yeah, that's fine. Any other questions, Jen? Yeah.
Yeah, that's gorgeous.
Far away.
Now, I'm seeing green across the screen. You didn't apply any green at all, did you?
No.
No.
No. Yeah, it's just the
The blue-
color of the
well,
wood coming through.
The blue is like a turquoise blue.
Right.
So that's
right.
probably the gate green highlights you're seeing.
Well, and then the yellow of the wood comes through that light blue as well.
Yeah.
So we have to take that into account when we're coloring wood. Sometimes we get a little different result from what we initially expected because of that.
Yeah, but you can see there as I'm moving this, the tolerance you're getting with the the figure in there and the variation in color. I mean, I don't know how well the camera's picking
Oh,
up.
it's coming through.
The purple's just a little bit subtle. The color wise, you're getting the blue, but I don't know if you're getting the sort of the sense of the purple there as well. But it's certainly
Right.
giving it a bit of a shading. So I might actually do a similar thing on the inside. Sometimes I do different colors on the inside and outside. I mean, what I've done in the past was do one like this with purple shading the turquoise on the outside and then dark blue shading the turquoise on the inside, and or even go for totally different colors. I think you've got to try and have two colors that complement each other if you're doing different colors inside and out. So there's got to be some link between the two for that to work. But yeah, I mean, that's dry now. It needs more coats of lacquer to give it more depth, because that's not enough really. The first couple of coats tend to soak in, and it acts like a sanding sealer if you haven't put sanding sealer on first. So the first couple of coats are going to soak in anyway. But I'll build that up with further coats, and hopefully I'll have that finished for one of the future meetings, and I'll show you the finished result of it.
Do you leave the base natural, or you finish the base?
The foot I will just leave natural wood, yeah.
Yeah.
When I finished everything else, I'll cut the spigot away and just leave the foot natural wood, because then I can sort of sign it, put my name on, do all that sort of thing, and it's sort of it shows the natural colour of the wood on the foot. The Master Birch one I showed you earlier, I did exactly the same with that. I'll show you the bottom on that one. So it's natural wood on the foot. But you see there, that's the pith. So that's the center of the log. These I always make out of a whole log, because I mean, looking at it on the top there, the pattern on Master Birch radiates out from the center. So I'll make these out of a whole log. So I got that pattern radiating out, which I think works quite well with these.
That was a brilliant demo, Paul. Thanks for staying up so late to do it.
Yes, we appreciate you staying up late, Paul.
Really, it's going on what? It's 2:30, almost 3:00, almost 2:30.
Yep, 2:20 here. Yeah, just gone. But yeah, I think I'm gradually becoming nocturnal, so that's fine. I've got nothing desperate sort of lined up for tomorrow morning, so I can have a lie-in the morning. I don't need to get up too early. So
he stays up all night.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul.
Dogs.
Okay.
I know I'm gonna have to try this. That looks great.
Right. To do something different. Yes. Thank you.
He stays up all night watching hedgehogs, right?
But if you don't have airbrushes, you can still do that technique and apply the color either with a sponge or with a brush. I mean, just using a pad you make up out of some kitchen towel or something like that. Any of those are going to work, because you're almost taking the surface to a saturation point, so you're putting quite a lot of color on. So apart from the bits where I was just shading the edges and being a little bit more selective, you could apply the color with almost anything. But one thing with the spirit dye is if you're trying to apply it with a brush or a pad or a sponge or something like that, you've got to cover the whole surface really, because otherwise where you stop, you're going to leave an edge. You're going to leave a line of color and then no color. So you've almost got to cover the whole surface so you don't have that edge. So use it sort of with that in mind if you apply it another way other than airbrushing. But yeah, I mean, I've used airbrushes for a lot of years with those spirit dyes, and I find it an effective way to control how much you're putting on. And sometimes I'm blending one color with another and shading sort of one color into another and that sort of thing. And use them quite a lot, and it's quite an effective way of applying it. And they're pretty cheap airbrushes, those. So I bought a few of them. So as you can see, I just have one lined up with each color, so you can switch them around.
Well, great demo. My goodness.
Thank you very much. It was a bit of a last minute thing. Dane only sort of asked me to step in a couple of days back, so I thought, what haven't I done yet? So, I thought, that was what I hadn't done. So it was really a demonstration of the technique rather than a finished piece, so to speak. But
right.
Hopefully it was of interest.
It was perfect. I gained a lot of knowledge out of it. And of course, most know that I do a lot of dyeing myself, so I love seeing what somebody else does on top of everything that you've done before, dyeing and/or the paints. Eventually, I'm going to break out that airbrush unit that you helped me buy 4 years ago, and I finally use it one of these times.
yeah, go for it. Yeah,
right. But most excellent, and I really appreciate you taking on tonight's demo, Paul. I really appreciate it.
That's great, no problem.
Thanks, Paul.
You're welcome.
Sure. All right, folks. Anybody else have any questions for him? Otherwise, I'm going to let Paul go so he can have some tea and go get a couple hours of sleep.
I'll probably stick around for a little while anyway. I'll have another drink before I go. So
there you go.
Anyway.
The only thing I would add is that if you want to get into buy multiple airbrushes, Harbor Freight has a deal where they sell a package of 6 of the very similar airbrushes. There are siphon feed with the little cups, and they come with tops for the cups. I know that Nick Agar travels and demos with that same setup from Harbor Freight. It's like $129 for 6 airbrushes and a little stand and the cups and the caps and stuff. And they're good. They're decent airbrushes. They work pretty good. And Agar travels with them because he can just, when he's done, he just takes them off of the airbrush and caps them off, and they're good till the next time he pulls them out of the little carrying case it comes with. So that's an option if you're interested.
Thanks.
I'm just looking for the link for that website I was on about. I'm not entirely sure where it was, but I'll if I find it, I'll drop it into the chat.
That'd be great, Paul. Thanks.
All right, let's
Paul,
swing back to Captain Eddie.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you so much. Thanks.
That's right. You're welcome.
Well, that was
Swing back to Captain Eddie and see what he thought.
That was a bucket of information there, Paul. Thank you.
Good.
Really, some beautiful work, folks. That's why you come here, because we have professionals that will show you the truth, the way it's done. Picking up some ideas. You didn't get an idea from that. What are you going to get an idea from? I mean, it is awesome. And if you play around that airbrush a little bit, I know Dane's going to be, can't stand it. He's got to get that done.
I know, right?
Yeah, really. I didn't appreciate it until I happened upon one at Harbor Freight. And then I played around a little bit, and my oldest daughter, who's a pretty good artist, she came by and saw it, and I said, "Hey, can I borrow that?" And a couple of days later, she brought back a throw pillow that she airbrushed, and she airbrushed the image of my face on that pillow. And she ruined the pillow with that, but she airbrushed that. I said, "How did you do that?" And she said, "Well, I took that airbrush, Dad, and I changed the tips. You know, they had multiple tips." And then I said, I didn't know that. I thought those were spare parts. And then she said, "Oh, no, you can do this and this and this and this." And how'd you find that out? Well, you play with it. And that's what she did. And I tell you what, her and I were talking about it today. She's airbrushing ornaments for Christmas because it's a beautiful, easy way to do nice additions to your work. And it's a great, for me, as a wood turner, it was a great way to add color to work because, and even if I was doing something simple like ornaments or snowmen or whatever, my process was always have an airbrush with a sealer and a matte coat or whatever available, and I just hang them up, put the airbrush on, and be done with them. And it was quick and easy to clean. And if you use them regularly, they are beautiful. Don't get nuts so about the airbrushes. Man, I'm glad you mentioned those 6 for a deal. You don't necessarily need an artist to airbrush to do our work. You go to places where they come so fine, you can write your name and it looks like it's an ink pen. They make airbrushes that fine. Think about it for a minute. What are you going to do with it? So get into something that's multi-use and available, and don't be afraid to kill it. But you will kill it if you overpower it. If you think, well, 30 pounds works really good. If I can't get up about 70 or 80, it's not made to run at 70 or 80. It's made to run at 15, 20, 30 pounds. And when you test it and play with it a little bit, you'll find out about it. And that's the key. The key is to work it before you need it, work it, learn it. And even if you got to be really artistic on stuff, it's fun. Thank you, Paul. That was a great demo tonight. Really fantastic. It's what we look for at Worldwide Woodturners. We look for the versatility of our membership. We do not pay for these demonstrations. These are done by heart, as a gift from our members to better the wood turning community. And that's what we're here for, to better the wood turning community. Our newsletter is out available. It's an awesome issue. And if you didn't catch the little announcement, in a couple of weeks, we will hit 1 year with this series newsletters. We did newsletters a long time ago. I did them, and the brain screwed up and all that. And JJ stepped up and said, hey, I got this idea. And JJ took the idea and started running with it. And you talk about some art and some fantastic stuff that's all in our newsletter, and it's from our membership. And it's people that turn wood, show wood, share it, share the art that they do, share ideas and details and tricks and tips and all that. And it goes into our newsletter. And every other week we publish one. And in a couple of weeks, you'll be able to see the entire year of 2024 in a full a ball of a book of newsletter. I gotta get that, and I gotta get it printed. I have to. It's one of those things that you have to have. I mean, it's pictures of people, work from people like you that I don't get to see anywhere else. In fact, I would probably never see that work if it wasn't for Worldwide Woodturners. I'd probably never know it. I'd miss all that in a heartbeat. So why would I miss it? I can belong to the world's largest wood turning organization. It's free with the finest website that's ever hit wood turning. Thank you, David. And a whole lot more. And it's all right here. So be part of our group. And gallery is part of our group. It's about half an hour before we call it the formal meeting wraps up. Get that, the formal meeting wraps up. This thing never ends, you know that. And then they go into the session. Is that a good way to put it, Dane? The session.
Sure. Yeah, we can call it the session.
Oh, let's give it a formal name. The session. Gotta do something formal. But if you got something to show tonight, yeah, the happy hours. If you've got something to show tonight, put it in chat. Say I got something to show, and Matt Hanby handles that. He'll call up on you, introduce you, and say, "Hey, let's see what you're turning, what you've come up with, what your ideas and all." And don't forget, folks, if you've got something to go in our newsletter, you send it to, it's easy, editor@worldwidewoodturners.org. That's how you get a hold of us. And if you got comments or questions about our Level Up project that's coming up in September of 26, you contact us at Level Up, no spaces, nothing else, Level Up at worldwidewoodturners.org. And we'll be glad to take that information. And if required, we respond to it. But we want your input. Remember, we take the good, the bad, the ugly. We really do, because we only grow if we know. So with that, great demo tonight. Fantastic. so far we've seen some really good turnings. I, I think was it Daniel that did the ornaments with urchin? Man, he did some nice work, really. And that you can play with color with that. And the beauty of the urchins, no two of them are alike. God's pretty good about that. They don't all look the same anyway. And then you get to play with the color. And he did nice on that. And with some nice turning too, Daniel. So if you've got something to show tonight, step up and show it. It's your meeting. So with that, I'm going to sit back, and I think my dinner's coming in a minute. Hey, what's up?
Yeah, I think we saw it coming through the door.
She did? I wasn't paying attention.
Uh-huh.
She might have snuck in.
All right, Matt, who we got for gallery?
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to me here. So this is a sea urchin ornament I did a few years back. It is the finials are wood. I use the Marc Soleil method. There's an 1/8 inch dowel between the top and the bottom finial, and the sea urchin is sprayed with my airbrush metallic silver. So this looks cooler in person. But at any rate, after that is Doug Miller, who's got a lot to show us.
Oh, a lot to show you. Well, I got 3 things to show you anyway. I think last week I showed you an oak bowl. It was supposed to be walnut. This was the next chunk down from that crotch. Turned a nice closed form yesterday, and just all kind of stuff in this wood. It's a beautiful piece of wood. Inside finished out just as nice. Got the bottom side lasered and all that fun stuff. And to feel this is such a sensual piece. This is one of those things, one of those pieces you gotta have in your hand to really appreciate it. Then today I got a piece sent to me from a fella. He turns some crazy wood. He finds wood. He searches for wood. A lot of it has been out in the ocean, so it's driftwood. This particular piece I got from him, it's been burned and then washed out to sea, and then he found it on the beach, and he started turning it, and he got the bottom a little too thin, and because it's irregular, Brenda, I had to
in the club, Brenda.
Oh my God!
Had to get a Band-Aid. First one I've had in a long time. But anyway,
Carfax on it first.
No, it wasn't that bad. It hit me more than it cut me. But that edge right there is the one that got me. He went through this center, and so as Captain Eddie has always said, and I've adopted the saying and shared it with so many people, if you can hold it, you can turn it. So what I did is I put a glue block on the inside with hot melt glue. In fact, here it is. I knew it was right here close. This is the piece of cherry that I did those plates a while back with. I've turned probably a dozen plates with that same piece of wood using CA glue, and then shear that off, put a chisel in the edge, shear that right off. Never harm the glue block at all. This time I use hot melt glue on this. This is California lilac. Anyway, I glued that on here so I could get the bottom, and I turned that hole that was in here all jaggedy, nice and round. Took it out. Well, I also thinned this a little bit. This is I didn't even measure it. I meant to. It's 7/16 thick. Now it was double that. I took a lot of weight out of from the front side. But anyway, got this hole nice and round. Turned this piece of spalted. I think it's some spalted maple. Started to say spalted oak. I think it's spalted maple. Just a chunk that's been laying around. I have no clue where it came from. I know I turned the other part of it, what I didn't have here, into a bowl quite a while back. But anyway, turned it, put a tenon on this so I could hold it here. got this nice and smooth, and went ahead and cut a circle outside of my insert. And that's just some shavings off the floor. I ground them up in my hand, used some SIG glue to glue those in. Came back around with just a friction drive and my tail center in here, removed my tenon and left the big part of this for my foot. And it worked out quite nice. You can
It's
see
beautiful.
that. I used Howard's Feed and Wax to give it just a little life to it. It really isn't that bright shiny. It's more of a satin.
I think that's a beautiful piece, Doug, and great recovery.
Yeah, like I said, that's exactly right, Matt. It's a recovery piece. He
So Doug,
was
I
going
gotta
to,
ask.
yeah,
It looks like you pulled that piece out of the burn pile.
it was burned. Yes, it was burned in some of the California wildfires, especially right there, that
got
area.
it.
And then
Okay.
this is out of the root section of the plant.
Okay.
And this area right through here was burned.
I just wanted to make sure my eyes weren't deceiving me that it had been burned. Okay.
Right,
Got it.
right. Now I didn't burn it. It was burned before I got it.
Right.
But you can
Okay.
see there's the natural color. You can kind of see the red in it, and the longer it stays exposed, the darker it gets, which is kind of normal. But I think for what he sent me, it's beautiful. He's impressed. He's already commented on it. So he liked it. I love it. And that you might be wondering why I did that ring, especially just putting shavings in there. But I had the light shavings on the floor right under my feet, and that set off this inner part and gives it that intentionality.
Yeah, I think it was a great decision. It really, really makes everything pop, and I think it was a fantastic addition.
Yeah.
A great decision. Yeah.
Again, smooth as it can be. It was sanded to 340. Sanded it as best I could. And like Dane said, when I got back here to this section and I hit this char, you should have seen the black dust. It was just flying. I didn't get it
charcoal.
all. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And it went flying, and it was a nasty mess, but it all blew off. Was able to finish, and I'm tickled with it. This will go in the store, and I can't wait to see what it does.
Well, we enjoyed your live
for your
today, Doug.
Oh, thank you,
You
Dale.
were doing that.
Thank you.
So for your for the dark circle, you said you ground up the shape. So you took the shavings from that and used that with CA.
Oh, the light circle.
No,
the dark circle. The dark circle is the wood. This is my
Okay, you turned
insert,
it down through the wood.
and then I came out here and did a little groove, grabbed up
Okay.
some of the light. I think it's hackberry shavings that were on the floor.
Okay.
And I just
got it.
sat there and rubbed them, got them real fine, and then put them in there with some Parfex, and just gave it a nice little intentional ring there.
That's beautiful, Doug. Just
Thanks.
beautiful.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Nice.
Hey, Doug,
thank you, Doug.
Doug, I've got a question. Do you have your laser pecker handy?
Yeah.
Could you show that and talk a little bit about it, just very briefly?
Yeah.
Because
the laser pecker, the LP1, which is their base unit. Let me pull it out of here, and I can really show you.
So how do you turn it on? You plug it in and turn it on? Isn't the switch on the bottom? No.
The switch is on the back side.
Right.
But when I plug this in, okay, let me start from the beginning. There's the face of it. That's the part that faces my wood that I want to laser. There's the wire on the back side. It's only the one wire, and that's a power wire. And I've made this cup. That's got a Morse Taper 2 tail on it, so I can stick it in my tailstock. And so I've got this as a snug fit where just press it in as straight as I can get it. Some days I can get it straighter than others. And then I did cut a hole back here for the cord to go through, and I just leave it in there because there is some adjustment you can do. You control this thing through your phone. So there's that. That's that purple dye that Paul was using earlier.
Okay.
Anyway, I put that in my tailstock, slide it up pretty close to where it needs to be. It's got to be
8 inches,
gotta be-
20 centimeters,
yeah, it's got to
Yeah,
be that long.
7.5 inches or something like that.
Yeah, they
20
it's,
centimeters.
yeah, they send you that with it.
Yep.
A little wood ruler. I drilled a hole in it, keep it right here with my metal rule that I use all the time. So I get it up close, use that, use my tailstock, the quill to bring it up usually half an inch or so to where it's perfect from my work. And then I run it through my phone. Plain and
Okay,
plain
very
simple
cool.
as that.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Doug.
Maybe next time I do a demo, I can show that to you all.
Okay. Thank you.
And then the LP1 Pro comes with the little shield.
Yeah.
You can
And
set
a
that up
stand
with
that
your
goes up
face.
and down and all
Yeah.
that fun stuff.
Yeah, and you set that up with your faceplate as well. That's where I've got mine sitting. Actually, I
Right.
got it all sitting with my airbrush unit. I'm going on year
Yeah,
number one.
I really like the idea of putting it in your tailstock and bringing it up. That's a great
Yeah.
idea.
I
So
got
You
that's-
can
that.
also, and then you can also do it in your drill press as well.
Yes, yes. I got the idea of the cup that goes into the tailstock from the same guy that sent me this wood. He does that. Has done it for quite a while. I thought it was so cool, and then I finally figured out what he was doing, and got mine. And he told him, he says, "Have you made your cup for it yet?" Gave me some tips on doing the cup and all of that. And I want to redo my cup. It works great, but I can do better with that. It's a little tight, so and I don't have room to make it any bigger on the inside. But we're going to do that real soon.
Doug, you need to get him to join us.
I've tried. I don't know what he's doing on Wednesday night, but I'll keep trying. I'll keep working on him.
Well, next time he's in a live I'm in too, I'll mention it to him.
Absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. Zed is a zombie wood turner. He's a interesting character.
To say the least.
Yeah. Every once in a while, he likes to send a piece across the shop.
Yeah, I've seen that more than once.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's fun to watch. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
He
right, well,
launches
thanks, Doug.
stuff more than I do.
His AI voice and all that fun stuff.
Great stuff. Who else we got, Matt?
We got Jim Duxbury. What you got, Jim?
For me. Let's see here. I'll show my progression of things. This is a model that I did with a 90-degree router a couple weeks ago. And this is another version of the same thing. Set at an angle.
Oh,
That's cool with those painted flutes.
Yeah, with painted flutes.
Yeah, that is cool.
That's beautiful.
And the last one, oh, these are getting better. The last one, these are progressive.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, wow.
Neat.
Sweet.
Now you're just showing off.
Yeah. and these are radius. These are you could put a dowel in here and glue it in and turn this and have inlays or something.
Nice.
But that's the latest one.
Wow.
Very cool. What great fun.
And all you do, you put it in at an angle so that it's cutting deeper on this side than it is on this side. But getting it at the right angle and the cut at the right depth is not a fun afternoon, I'll tell you. It takes a while to do, but they came out pretty good.
Yes, they
Yep.
did.
Gorgeous.
Anyway, that's a fun. There will be more. Yeah.
Thank you, Jim. We look forward to seeing him. Next up is Dave George. What you got, Dave?
I don't think Tom's ever going to get that thing back.
Well, it's been about 5 months since I've been even turning, but finally got back to it. and my neighbor has a son getting married, and he manages a bunch of property in Minnesota here for his brother-in-law or his uncle actually for deer hunting. He's getting married, and he had a deer shed or an antler shed that he wanted me to make a ring for, and so I ended up never turned antler before, but I ended up turning this wedding ring for him on the lathe. And that was a learning experience. And I used a respirator because I have no idea what antler is good for your lungs or not. But then I'm using jam chucks and sharp gouges with a very gentle touch. And it came up fairly well. So then I figured, okay, now that I got a ring, and then the biggest thing was getting the right sizing. So get it to fit his hand was about like mine. And so he stopped over just last night, and it fits him perfectly. And so he just tickled pink. And so then I made another one for his bride. It's a sort of chain. This is out of another deer antler on the lathe, and a chain for her around her neck. So then I figured, well, I better start, since it's been a while since I've been on the lathe, try to make a box. So I made a box out of oak, some old oak that I had, and I lined that with some deer skin that I actually had tanned. And so anyway, this is I have to actually Trish, my wife, she does laser burning. We're going to put the date of the wedding and the coordinates of where the wedding is at, which is their own property. So then it'll be basically this and the other ring in there, and then this is the top of the oak box that I made, and so and the top is made out of ebony that I got from Mark Soleil when I took a trip down there last year, I guess it is. So that's basically my project that I've done since about 5 months ago. It's good to be back in the shop. I have one other thing, just a question. Is that I've been turning kind of like twice turn bowls, you know, so you put them get them turned down and throw them on the rack and wait for about a year and a half, 2 years, whatever it is. This is an ash bowl or it's a tree out of my front yard that I actually the storm took down, but it was doing great until I looked at it the other day, and it's got a crack clear across here, and I have about 3 of them that way. Is that typical? That, I mean, what's your rate of failure on these things when you turn them to where I thought it was pretty well solid or the same thickness all the way down through the bottom?
It depends on a number of factors. Depends on the wood, depends on the kind of wood, and it depends on how thick it is. So in general, if I keep the pith out of the wood and I turn it, say 3/16 or a 1/4 inch thick, I don't get cracks. If I'm too close to the pith, I still run a chance of getting cracks with something like walnut. But again, it depends on the wood too. So I would say that if you're a 1/2 inch or that's too thick, it's going to crack. Okay.
Okay.
So I rough turn to 1 inch or 3/4 inch, and then dry it, and then finish turn to less than 1/2 inch thick.
That's what he did. He rough turned it.
I rough
but it's still too.
Yeah, this is probably 1 1/4 inch and maybe more. But that's why, like I say, I have 2 of them that did this. They cracked right here, and so to me, part of me wants to say, and I put CA glue in that, try to keep it. Part of me wants to try to turn it. The other part of me says, don't be stupid. Just use it for firewood. So,
what kind of wood is it? Ash. Okay.
Ash.
It's probably, how long has it been drying?
Since about June, actually May of this year.
Hey, Dave, is that winter cut or summer cut?
No, it's summer because it came down this
Okay.
storm this spring and summer.
Well, that can be part of your problem because it was so full of moisture in summer.
Oh, yeah.
The best wood is winter wood, early
Okay.
spring, because there lots of the saps drain out.
Dave, let me cut in here real quick. Glenn Lucas talks about this problem that you just had. You rough cut it to the right size. The problem is on that flat part in the bottom of the bowl, you've
Right.
got that tenon. And that area right there holds a little bit more moisture. And if you ever look at anything that Glenn Lucas has ever put out, he always talks about making the bottom of the bowl a little bit thinner than the exterior part. So you get your 10% wall thickness as uniform as possible, all the way close to the bottom of the bowl. And then you get it a little bit thinner down there in the bottom near that tenon so that it dries out a little bit more uniformly.
Okay. Well, like I say, it's a learning process for me, and I'm trying to get into bigger bowls. I have some family members and some hunting partner wives that want wood bowls for making bread and stuff like that. And I said, well, okay, I could make bigger bowls, but trying to get them to where they don't split on me and get them made up, I'm having a little more problems with that.
Hey, Dave, that antler dust is about like asbestos, so you better really have a mask on and some
or respirator, yes,
respirator and vacuum going, trying to pull that dust out.
Actually, I didn't know for sure. So what I did when I was turning that ring, not only turning it, but even sanding it and like that, I had of course, I had a respirator on, a face mask. I had I have a downdraft sanding table going with filters in it, and then I had a dust collector going at the same time. Because I figured I didn't know. I didn't research it. I just figured it may not be good. So I did do that. I probably need to upgrade my respirator into more of a face mask respirator at some point in time. But I'm just doing now one of those the ones with kind of the pink deals on the side, filters. So
yeah, antler and bone dust is bad juju.
Bad juju. Well, okay. Well, I did my best to keep it out of my lungs.
You did right.
Well, that's good to know. So I made 2 of them, and I'm not sure I need to make any more.
That's the attitude.
Okay, that's all I have, and I appreciate the input on the rough turning, and I'm glad to be back. And actually, after being gone for about 5 months, this is one of the best boxes I made as far as the tight fit. I feel invigorated.
All right,
great.
that's
Good.
good. That's good, Dave.
We're glad you're back too.
Good to be back. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Last but not least, we got Howard. What you got, Howard?
Hey, how y'all doing?
Doing good.
How y'all doing? I've been making last few weeks been making some Christmas ornaments, and this is maple and inside out, inspired by Matt Harbor, and I painted it with gold leaf paint, so it's
Nice.
inside out.
It was good.
Yeah.
And then some. I had some ambrosia maple, so I didn't paint it. I just left it. So
Pretty
I don't know if you can tell that or not.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, inside out, and then got one of these
There you go.
Sputnik
Yeah.
thing. Yeah,
Urchins.
Sputnik.
Mhm.
I don't know. Can y'all see that? I don't know.
Yeah.
I can.
Okay. Yeah, and it's ash. Got ash, finial, and whatever, icicle, whatever you gonna call it, on the bottom. And so anyway, I've been making little birdhouses. Made a whole bunch of these. Here's one of them.
Mhm.
cute.
I
Very
don't know
nice.
if you
I don't
see.
think that bird can get in that house.
Be a tight fit, wouldn't it?
Sure would.
Yeah.
There's no A on that roof.
I know. Yeah.
He must be.
I need to put that
he must
on
be
there.
sitting on that perch all flexed up.
Yeah.
Looks like Tim on Taco Tuesday.
To make
There you
some of
go.
these gnomes, and so anyway,
Excellent.
That's
Excellent.
cute.
Nice.
Like it.
made a whole bunch of these. All right, that's all.
All
Very
right.
good.
Thanks, Howard.
Good.
All right. Well,
All
that
right,
brings
thank
us to
you.
the top of the hour. That was the last one for, do we have anybody else for gallery? Going
We
once,
don't.
going
It's
twice?
we ended right spot on the nose. So
Well, spot on.
timing was
Well,
exquisite.
great. So with that, this would be the demarcation point for the primary meeting leading into the session, aka the after hours. So those that don't want to stick around and hang out and get to know the rest of us, by all means, now's the time you can bow out. You don't have to worry about saying goodbye, announcing your departure. Appreciate everybody that did hang out to the very top of the hour, and look forward to seeing a lot of y'all back next week. Got another great demo on tap for us, unless we get a cancellation, but this guy never cancels, so I ain't got to worry about that. So aside from that, let's let the after hours party start.